Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Board of County Commission meeting here in Seminole County. It is Tuesday, September 9th, approximately 9:30 a.m. If y'all would just take a moment and check your cell phones, make sure they're on silent. If you have any other electronic devices, if you would be kind enough to silence those or put them in a mode that won't disturb the proceedings, we sincerely would appreciate it. Father John Blewett will lead us in prayer this morning, and I will ask Commissioner Lockhart to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
Good and gracious God, you are ever patient and forgiving. Today, we lift up in prayer not just the leadership of Seminole County, but the entire county, with gratitude for our many blessings. We lift up in a special way our school system and all our young people and staff and teachers as they begin a new year. Gracious God, continue to bless this great county as we work together to make it an even better county. And in closing, I'd like you to hear this quote and perhaps remember it, which says, "Honoring the one who gives us everything by helping others is as good as it gets." Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Father John. Thank you, Commissioner Lockhart. I sincerely appreciate that. I also want to say a word as we gather today. We look ahead to Patriots Day, which is observed this Thursday, September 11th. This is a time to reflect on nearly 3,000 lives lost in the 2001 attacks and to honor the heroes who ran toward danger that day, many of them firefighters and first responders. Here in Seminole County, we are blessed to have brave men and women who serve our community with that same spirit of courage and dedication. We thank each and every one of them for the work that they do every day to keep our residents safe. So let's remember September 11th this coming week. So next, we're going to move to our proclamations and awards and presentations, and I will apologize to the folks from Runway to Hope that we were not able to get pictures last time. The first two proclamations, first one will be read by Commissioner Herr, second one by Commissioner Constantine. These will not be voted on since we already voted on these at the last meeting. So if Commissioner Herr, if you want to proceed, we sincerely appreciate it.
Absolutely. It is my honor to read the proclamation of the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners proclaiming September 10th, 2025 as Runway to Hope Day in Seminole County, Florida. Whereas childhood cancer is the leading cause of death by disease in children across the United States. 46 children per day, or 16,790 children per year, are diagnosed with cancer, and 1 in 285 children will be diagnosed with cancer by their 20th birthday. And whereas the financial burden of medical expense and other bills can overwhelm parents and children alike, exasperating the stress and hardships faced by these families. Where 1 in 5 families are living in poverty at the time of their child's diagnosis, and 1 in 3 families experience work disruption, often requiring a parent to quit their job to become a full-time caregiver, dramatically reducing the family's income. And whereas when a child is diagnosed with cancer, the entire family suffers, oftentimes leading to poorly developed interpersonal skills, feelings of isolation, and low self-esteem for the child diagnosed, and anxiety, depression, and symptoms of PTSD and distress for the parents and siblings. And whereas Runway to Hope's efforts of offering direct emergency financial assistance for basic necessity expenses to families in our community is incredibly impactful. And whereas Runway to Hope has implemented its Total Wellness Program, a comprehensive support system designed to address the holistic needs of families, in addition to the financial needs that come along with a pediatric cancer diagnosis. And whereas throughout the year, Runway to Hope offers volunteer opportunities and collaborates with local businesses, sponsors, and donors to foster partnerships within the community, creating a network of ongoing support and engagement. And whereas throughout these initiatives, Runway to Hope significantly enhances the well-being of pediatric cancer patients and their families while fostering a supportive, engaged, and compassionate community. And whereas Seminole County recognizes and commends Runway to Hope for its unwavering commitment to supporting families and children in our region affected by pediatric cancer. Now therefore, be it proclaimed that we, the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim September 10th, 2025 as Runway to Hope Day in Seminole County, Florida, adopted on the 26th day of August, 2025.
Thank you, Commissioner Hurd. As before mentioned, it was approved unanimously. Thank you, and we appreciate you being here today. Next up will be the proclamation proclaiming September 2025 as Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month in Seminole County by Mr. Lee Constantine.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And before I start reading this, I just wanted to point out that Josie and Mark Nejame are in the audience, and they have been instrumental in not only in beginning this, but continuing this for all the years that Runway for Hope has been part of this community, and it has been an incredible success. I've been honored to be one of the celebrity models, I guess, is the way they put it, in the runway. And anybody that has never been to the Runway for Hope event certainly should try to be there, because it's one of the finest events of the year and always a great deal of fun. But more importantly, it's so inspirational and raises so much money. So I want to thank them personally, not only for being here, but for doing what they do in the community. Proclamation of Seminole County Board of County Commissioners proclaiming September 25th as Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month in Seminole County, Florida. Whereas pediatric cancer is the leading cause of death by disease among the children in the United States, with thousands of children diagnosed each year. And whereas despite advances in medical research, 1 in 5 children diagnosed with cancer in the United States will lose their battle with cancer. And whereas pediatric cancer affects not only the child, but also their family, friends, and community, requiring comprehensive support services to address emotional, financial, and medical challenges. And whereas September is recognized nationwide as Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month, symbolizing by the gold ribbon to honor the courage of children fighting cancer, remember those who have lost their lives, and support the survivors who face lifelong health challenges. And whereas Runway to Hope was founded in 2010 with the mission to support families primarily in Central Florida fighting pediatric cancer while seeking a cure. And whereas in 2024, Runway to Hope created the Family Assistance Program, which continues to provide direct emergency financial assistance to fill the gap with families combating the devastating disease need it most. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that we, Seminole County Board of County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim September 25th to 2025 as Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month in Seminole County, adopted this 26th day of August 2025.
Thank you, Commissioner. Congratulations, and thank you all very much. This also was approved unanimously at the last meeting, so thank you very much for being here. If you'll be patient with us, we'll get some pictures. As soon as we get through these next two, we'll try to get through these as quick as we possibly can. I promise we won't forgo this like we did last time. We got in a hurry. Next up is proclamation proclaiming September 17th through September 23rd, 25 as Constitution Week. Commissioner Lockhart.
Thank you so much. I want to recognize a few guests here with us this morning from the Sally Harrison chapter of the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution. Our Regent, Dawn Garand, is here with us, as well as a couple of other members who have been members along with me for many, many years. And so we want to thank the entire organization of the DAR for being the impetus for Constitution Week in the United States. So, fellow commissioners, I would like to move the following proclamation of the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners proclaiming the week of September 17th to 23rd, 2025 as Constitution Week in Seminole County. Whereas it is the privilege and duty of the American people to commemorate the 238th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the United States of America, with appropriate ceremonies and activities. And whereas this celebration of the Constitution was started by the Daughters of the American Revolution. In 1955, the DAR petitioned Congress to set aside September 17th through 23rd annually to be dedicated to the observance of Constitution Week. The resolution was later adopted by the U.S. Congress and signed into public law on August 2, 1956, by President Dwight D. Eisenhower. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate it. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that we, the Board of County Commissioners of Seminole County, proudly express our respect to the Constitution of the United States and do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through 23rd, 2025 as Constitution Week in Seminole County, adopted this 9th day of September 2025.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Carries unanimous. Thank you all very much for being here and your support. Next up is going to be proclamation proclaiming September 2025 as Hunger Action Month in Seminole County. This will be read by Commissioner Bob Delary. Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Proclamation of Seminole County Board of County Commissioners proclaiming the month of September 2025 as Hunger Action Month. Whereas hunger and poverty are issues vital concerns of Seminole County, where 12.3% of the people face hunger and do not know where the next meal is coming from. And whereas Seminole County is committing taking steps to combat hunger in every part of our community. And whereas Seminole County is committed to working with Second Harvest Food Bank of Central Florida, members of the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks, in educating people about the role and importance of food banks in addressing hunger and raising awareness of the needs to devote more resources and attention to hunger issues. And whereas there's over 58,000 food insecure individuals in Seminole County, including over 13,000 food insecure children. And whereas Second Harvest Food Bank of Central Florida distributes 300,000 meals every day throughout their 7-county services area in Central Florida through its network of food pantries, soup kitchens, shelters, and other community organizations. And whereas the month of September has been designated as Hunger Action Month in order to bring attention to food insecurity in our communities and enlist the public in a movement to end hunger by taking action, including volunteer shifts, social media shares, and donations to ensure every community and everyone in it has food they need to thrive. Whereas food banks across the country, including Second Harvest Food Bank of Central Florida, is a partner agency network, will host numerous events throughout the month of September, bringing awareness to help end hunger in our local community. Now therefore proclaim that we, the Board of County Commissioners of Seminole County, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2025 as Hunger Action Month, adopted this 8th day of September 2025.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Seeing none, carries unanimous. Thank you all very much. Let's take a few moments and get some pictures for everyone down on the floor. We're going to ask our recipients to have a few words if they would like. We'll start with Runway to Hope. The floor is yours. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you, Chairman Zimbauer, Vice Chair Herr, Commissioners Solari, Constantine, and Lockhart. Thank you for this proclamation this morning that you've bestowed upon Runway to Hope. It is such an honor and a privilege to serve the children and families here in Seminole County. They mean so much to our Central Florida district, and the work that we've been able to do and your support behind it is such a mark in what we can do together as a community. I also want to say that Seminole County holds a very special place in our hearts together. It is where our greatest blessings were born, our two daughters, Valentina and Alessandra. We are so proud of the work that is done here in your 7 municipalities and the work that we've created together. We hope to continue to grow and do more and more. And we're so thankful for their participation, especially Commissioner Constantine, the work that you've done with Runway to Hope from the very beginning to be able to help these children and families that are battling pediatric cancer during their hardest times, to help make a difference, to bring a smile to their face, but to help them emotionally and financially, and to be able to give them the ability to take care of their child. We are so grateful for this honor today.
Thank you. 3 brief things. One, you see why I married her. The second is that you all are invited to be celebrity escorts. Lee and I go back a long, long way. Commissioner Constantine, I'm sorry, but we go back a long, long way. And so he's always been supportive. We've been friends, but we always like to have local elected officials there, and it really, the community likes it, and it really brings the issue of pediatric cancer to the forefront. And I forgot the third thing, so thank you very much.
Thank you for being
We
here.
appreciate very much the support that we get. And it's really, we have a phenomenal team. 3 of our directors our heart are here, and the community has really embraced us. We've raised about $11.5 million since inception. We have a family assistance program that gives direct aid. We cut out all the red tape, all the bureaucracy, all the middle people, and we have a great network with healthcare providers of all 3 hospitals. So we make a significant donation to all 3 of the children's pediatric hospitals in Central Florida, which are about $1.5 million each. And then we also have the family assistance program. So for everything from funeral expenses, sadly, from time to time, to a mortgage, to a rent, to a tire, to a car that goes out. So it really does make a difference. And these symbolic things, these proclamations make a difference. It just brings more of an awareness to the community. So we thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and thank you. There's a lot of causes and a lot of things that you could help, but thank you for pinpointing us, and we appreciate it, and we're thankful.
And thank you all for filling a need in our community. Next up, I will invite the Daughters of the American Revolution. Good morning.
I, too, want to express my appreciation to each and every one of you for this proclamation received today. We are very honored to be one of the founding long-serving groups here in Seminole County. We originated here in 1918 in Sanford, and we continue to contribute to the community. And so I especially want to invite not only you all, but all of the citizens here to our celebration on Wednesday, the 17th in downtown Sanford at the Clock Tower at 4 p.m., where we ring in the celebration of our Constitution. So bring your bells with you and make a joyful noise along with us. And I just wanted to add in, hearing the last proclamation about hunger in Seminole County, our chapter has also recently been engaged in providing help to Seminole County students. I'm working with school liaison Amy Elwood to provide food assistance and supplies to unaccompanied homeless youth. So we're actively engaged with that. In fact, I brought home from our recent convention of the DAR daughters just this last weekend, $500 to bring back to Seminole County to Miss Elwood to help these children. And finally, let me mention, we are so excited to bring in America 250 this coming year, and I anticipate looking forward to all of the interaction that we'll have with our Seminole County communities and with each of you. So thank you so much for your support of the Seminole County Sally Harrison chapter. And thank you especially to Ms. Lockwood.
Thank you very much. Second Harvest Food Bank, which if a lot of the folks don't know, is been a long-term partner here in the county, especially during our hurricane seasons. They are very, very, very quick to respond to many of the needs that we have when people leave the coastal areas and show up here in Seminole County, or our own residents fall upon despair during those hurricanes. So thank you all very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I really want to thank the Commission for their ongoing partnership and advocacy and awareness here in Seminole County and Central Florida. 1 in 7 of our neighbors are hunger insecure, and 1 in 6 of those individuals are children. So I just want to thank you all for declaring September to be Hunger Action Month, because one, it brings more awareness and advocacy to the cause. Right here in Seminole County, just last year, we provided 8.2 million meals to our Seminole County residents with the support of 67 of those partner agencies. Those partner agencies are crucial. They're the ones that make food accessible, because no one should have to worry where their next meal comes from. So just want to thank you all for your continued commitment and awareness for the problem here in Central Florida.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take just a brief break and allow those that are going to be leaving the chambers to do so, and then we'll move on to our agenda items. Thank you all very much for being here today. We appreciate it very much. If anyone is here to speak on any of the consent agenda items, please ensure that you fill out one of the forms that can be found in the lobby and bring those up to Ms. Dominique here with her hand raised. Drop those with her so we can make sure that when that item comes up, you can be heard. I will go to the county attorney to read the rules of public participation. Ms. Latour?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Florida law provides that members of the public shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard on propositions before the Board of County Commissioners, except when the board is acting on emergency or ministerial matters or conducting a meeting exempt from the requirements of the Sunshine Law. Individuals shall be permitted 3 minutes each for public comment, or 6 minutes when the individual is an official representative of a formal association or group. The chairman may modify the maximum time for public comment at his sole discretion when appropriate. Public comments on quasi-judicial or other public hearing items will occur during the board's consideration of those items this afternoon. Public comments on pending procurement matters or on non-agenda items shall not be permitted at this time. Members of the public desiring to make public comment must fill out a speaker form and present the form to staff. Forms are available in the lobby. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And the county manager, do you have any updates? Mr. Gray?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Believe it or not, no changes to the consent agenda this morning.
Any of the commissioners have a need to pull any of the items separate for separate consideration? Seeing none, do we have any speakers on any of the consent items today?
No, sir.
Seeing none, we'll close public input and we will go to board action.
Mr. Chairman, I would move Constitutional Officer Consent Agenda number 5 and the County Manager's Consent Agenda 6 through 16.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, like sign? Carries unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to our regular agenda. This is the ServFest special event permit. This will be presented by Ms. Kathy Hamill. Good morning, Ms. Hamill.
Good morning.
The floor is yours when you're ready.
This is a special event for the ServFest, which is a 3-day event on October 9th, 10th, and 11th at 1990 Lake Emma Road. The event will have folk music, dancing,
and there will also be food and drink station. Last year's event had a maximum of 750 attendees. This event is proposing 950 attendees. The event will be on Friday from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m., Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Sunday 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Staff does find the request meets all the requirements for a special event, including the insurance, security plan, and restrooms. Therefore, staff does request the Board of County Commissioners approve the special event permit for the Serve Fest from October 10th to the 12th, based on the recommendations in the permit. I would also like to note that our code does allow for special events, once they're approved, to be approved, therefore administratively, if there are no changes and no issues. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Any inquiries of staff at this point from the commission?
Commissioner.
Hi, Commissioner Constantine.
I'm sorry, just one question. So the reason it's before us is because they went from 750 to 950 or 925, whatever that number was?
There was also a recommendation by the board last year to have it come back this year.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lockhart.
I think we were wanting to see, with the expanded hours and capacity, if there were any concerns from the immediately adjacent neighbors.
Sure.
And to the best of my knowledge, as the district commissioner, nothing has been brought to our attention.
Commissioner Delory.
Mr. Chairman, I was there last year. It was a great event. Parking, I was amazed on how they were so organized. The parking just flew in and out that I didn't see any problem with it. I was there a couple times. The only issue I had was that I ate too much, and the food was really good. And I recommend anyone that if you want to try different types of foods and culture, this is an excellent way to do it, because I got to tell you, the portions are out of control.
Great. Anything else?
That's something coming from Bob Delarue.
Oh, it is.
Acknowledge that. We know how to eat.
And Commissioner, I have the waistline to prove it.
All right. Any other inquiries for staff? Seeing none. Is there anyone here from the public to speak on this item?
No, sir.
Seeing none, we'll close any public participation and move to board action. Commissioner Lockhart.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Carries unanimous. Thank you all very much for being here, and good luck with your event this year. Next item is number 18, St. Andrews 2025 Fall Festival Special Event Permit. This will be presented by Ms. Angie Gates. Ms. Gates?
Good morning, Commissioners. Item 18 is a request for a special event permit for the St. Andrews Annual Fall Festival event, located at 5525 Wayside Drive in Sanford. The Fall Festival special event will be held for one day only on Saturday, November 15th, 2025, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. There will be various inflatables, food, vendors, and live music performed by a bluegrass band. The special event permit is required to be approved by the board because the anticipated event will exceed 200 guests and have amplified sound. Pursuant to Section 30.6.4.2 of the Seminole County Land Development Code and approving the special event, the board shall make a determination that the proposed event is reasonably compatible with the nearby existing development and does not pose an unreasonable safe or health risk for patrons or neighbors. Staff requests the Board of County Commissioners approve the St. Andrews Fall Festival located at 5525 Wayside Drive in Sanford for one day on Saturday, November 15th, 2025, subject to the conditions included in the special event permit. And this concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Any inquiries to staff? Seeing none, is there any public comments? Commissioner Constantine.
Thank you very much. And this is just, and because there is no changes, we are not going to have anything from the Greek festival this year. Is that correct? I'm going to miss them. They came in, the Greek festival, and the one in Altamont Springs.
But it's not on the agenda.
In November. I'm sorry? No, it's not on the agenda. I'm just asking that they're not going to have to come in this year because of the new law,
Yes.
ordinance. Thank you.
Just so we know, just to identify, that's not related to the agenda item.
No.
So we don't have any confusion.
It's just a random thought.
Question to staff. Yep.
All right, anything else?
What did you have for breakfast this morning? Maybe random.
He's got banana.
Seeing none, is there anyone here for the public to speak on this matter?
No, sir.
We'll close public input, and we'll move to board action. This is Commissioner Hur's district. Commissioner?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, like sign. Carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Good luck with your event.
Did anyone hear from anyone from the church? Is there anyone here from the church?
And I think there may or may not be.
I know we usually have representatives from the organizations either reach out to us or come to the meeting. Yes, I know, because I met with them last year and we talked and we had a great meeting, and so I was just wondering if anyone had an opportunity or anyone reached out from St. Andrews on this item. No? Okay.
All right, our next item up is work session number 19. Senate Bill 180 update, Land Development Code update, work session number 3. This will be put on by Ms. Nasa Borkert, Deputy County Attorney, Robert McHugh, Assistant County Attorney, Jose Gomez, Development Services Director, and Maya Athenas, Principal Planner.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Robert McHugh, Assistant County Attorney. So as you all are well aware, since its passage, Senate Bill 180 has garnered a considerable amount of attention and debate in the local government community across the state. The purpose of this presentation is to present on 2 distinct substantive areas contained in the bill, emergency management and land use. I'll start off with the emergency management component, and Deputy County Attorney Nasa Borkert will follow up with the land use side of the bill. So in my analysis of Senate Bill 180, the emergency management side can really be distilled down to 4 sub-areas: shelters, contracts with service providers during emergency declaration period, state guidance, continuing training requirements, and information to the public. So we'll go through each of them one by one. For shelters, the bill allows for caregivers of folks with special needs to accompany the persons under their care at special needs shelters. It also gives a mandate to the Florida Division of Emergency Management to collate a list of shelters across the state that could potentially need retrofitting, and submitting that to state leaders for consideration for hurricane loss mitigation. This list is due from FDEM by October 15th, so I think from the county's end, it's important for us to be cognizant of the October 15th deadline to the extent that we want to provide information to the state, where we might need like to apply for some funding or for retrofitting for our shelters. For contracts with providers, the bill allows for local governments to amend franchise agreements to require that waste haulers pick up storm debris. It also mandates that counties and municipalities apply at least for one debris management site with FDEM, which I've consulted with emergency management staff, and that's something, we have multiple emergency debris sites across the county, so that's something that we don't have to worry about. The bill also establishes a uniform penalty regime for vendors in breach during an emergency recovery period, which is defined as 1 year from the declaration by the governor of a natural emergency. For continuing training and state guidance, there's really a slew of deadlines that FDEM has been mandated with. This first bullet point, FDEM is mandated to assist local governments to develop comprehensive emergency management plans, templates, and mutual aid guidance. So this is not something that us as a political subdivision is required to take from the state, but it's something that's offered to us if we were to seek guidance in that area. The bill also establishes biannual training requirements for local officials for counties that would include county managers and the Public Works Department head. The bill also establishes an annual hurricane readiness session for each sub-region in the state. For counties, our emergency management director is the person who's tasked with attending those. And lastly, The bill requires that each political subdivision update FDEM on who their point of contact is. And for the county, again, it's the emergency management director. The bill also requires that emergency preparedness and response information, kind of Q&A, best practices, rules and regs, applicable laws, those be readily available to the public. And I've consulted with Alan Harris, and he has advised that all this information is readily accessible on our website. So we're good with that. So in terms of compliance, Seminole County, we're fully accredited under the Emergency Management Accreditation Program. And I say this because essentially Senate Bill 180 has taken those standards and codified them, grafted that into the bill. So by virtue of our accreditation, we're already in compliance with the vast majority of the requirements put forth in this bill from the emergency management side. As far as next steps goes, just need to continue to monitor the state and their rulemaking authority in the wake of the passage of Senate Bill 180, ensure that we're continuing to comply with all the dates and standards that they're going to promulgate in the weeks and months to come, and also to review and amend all of our franchise agreements and our vendor contracts to ensure that the verbiage that is required by this bill is implemented into those contracts. And I'm actively working with staff to ascertain which contracts are affected by this bill, and we'll take steps to amend and incorporate the verbiage that's required with Senate Bill 180. So that concludes my portion of the presentation. If there aren't any questions.
Commissioner Lockhart.
Commissioner Lockhart.
I've learned from lawyer friends in my life that there's a big difference between the word may and shall.
Yes.
And so I picked up on the slide that says contracts with providers. It was one of the earlier
872.
slides.
Yes.
Is there a number?
872, I believe, the waste haulers.
It says local governments may amend waste hauler contracts to require storm debris pickup.
Yes.
But I'm kind of picking up from your comments in next steps that we shall. So is it a may, is it a shall?
It is officially a may, but I think in terms of best practices, it doesn't hurt to incorporate that provision in there. Of course, I'll be in touch with staff and from a policy standpoint, see whether or not we want to pursue incorporating that in our franchise agreement.
My other, stayed at a Holiday Inn last night, commentary on waste hauling, and Kim Ornberg and her team obviously know far more about this than I do, but just from experience of living through several disasters and pickups, the haulers kind of, after our contracted storm debris pickup occurred and there were still things left that maybe didn't get picked up, or people were late in getting things to the street because, you're without power and it's traumatic. Anyway, our haulers who we are contracted with for regular pickup were kind of like gracious enough to help pick up, but they weren't required to. So I just want to understand, are we shifting now to does opening up that contract with those haulers present other opportunities for them to ask for other modifications? Is this a financial? I see some heads nodding in the back. I don't know that I'm asking the right person, but my brain is doing this. As we think about opening this up, there may be unintended consequences.
Mr. County Manager, aren't we already in discussion about contract with the waste haulers?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, that will be coming back to you next year, but Mr. Harris probably can address Commissioner Lockhart's concern there.
For the record, Alan Harris, Director of Emergency Management. We've been working with Administrative Services, Procurement, and you're absolutely correct. And you use the terms unintended consequences, and that is absolutely something that all 67 county emergency managers are concerned about, because now we are going to add this addendum on there that says if you don't do certain things in certain time periods, that there could be additional costs. So we are concerned that as we do these new contracts, that there could be an elevated cost to the county from these vendors trying to recoup what potentially the unthinkable could happen. We understand the tenets of the bill, but that is one of the unintended consequences that could occur, is as we renegotiate, there could be an elevated cost to the county.
Yeah, and to our citizens.
Well,
Yeah, right,
absolutely,
because
that would be the end
that
result.
gets passed
yes.
on, for sure. Okay, thank you, I appreciate that very much.
Sorry.
Mr. Delary?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Commissioner Lockhart, I wanted to have that same exact conversation because may is a very important word, and you're absolutely right for bringing it to the forefront. My concern is along those same lines. When you talk about storm debris, we always want to keep it separate because that way we can actually monitor the debris to be reimbursed if it's FEMA, acceptable. The reason why, because everything has to be weighed. And there's different ways of picking up debris and accounting for it. And I'm hoping that the state realizes that this is going to increase the cost. And we may not be able to get reimbursed by FEMA. That is my main concern here. And so maybe the state's willing to reimburse us for that. I'm not sure. But make sure that when you talk to staff, this is all about keeping the pounds and tonnage under control and accountable so that we can be reimbursed by FEMA.
Commissioner Herr.
So, to answer, that wasn't a question, but to answer that, we would absolutely still, so we have debris monitors and debris haulers.
That's correct.
Debris monitors would take on additional responsibilities as well, because we would want to ensure that every dollar that we can get from this disaster declaration, that we get that. So they would have to not only look at the haulers that we already work with, but also the
And Alan, I agree with you, but as you know with FEMA, there's limitations on how much you can reimburse people.
Yeah, we're saying this, I just want to.
And so I want to make sure that whatever that increased cost is, that
Yes, sir.
FEMA is going to reimburse us for it.
That's correct.
And
we're
if
gonna
it's not, then we need to figure out how to reload this thing to make sure that our citizens are covered.
Correct. Yeah, and we've been having those conversations in the county manager's office as well as with environmental services.
Because I don't want
solid
to
waste,
price,
to make sure that we get the maximum benefit from the federal government that we can. We certainly understand this.
And I want to make sure that we're not agreeing to something that's going to cost us in the long run and cost the citizens.
Agreed, absolutely.
Commissioner Herr.
So it's funny that at least three of us wrote down the exact same item to say, hold on, hold on, hold on.
Exactly.
I think the word "may" was put in there intentionally. I think they probably do understand that there's unintended consequences from this. I think we should take full advantage of the word "may" and let this kind of work its way through the system. Hauling debris is entirely different from hauling trash. It is a different setup. It is different equipment that comes out. And so we have the possibility, and we have a pretty well-oiled machine on hauling trash. I don't want 700 emails and 14 phone calls about how we don't have a well-oiled machine, but it works pretty darn well. And we have the potential here to not only disrupt service, but disrupt cost structure to the citizens by doing something that it can't hurt to add it. It can hurt to add it because the intentions are not super clear here. My suspicion is, as we have to legislate statewide and paint with a broad brush, that there are probably smaller counties where this would work, and where they don't have the luxury of size and the reserves to be able to establish payment structures for debris haulers that net good contracts, that they are stuck and need this solution in there. I don't feel like we are. Let's not create a problem early on. Let this thing ride. And I didn't even stay at a Holiday Inn, but this one is really apparent that this is potential fraught with issues.
Commissioner Delary, you had something you needed to follow up with?
I just wanted to follow up that there have been times where there could be difficulty in getting debris haulers. I want to make sure that this doesn't preclude us, because now people are expecting us to have our waste haulers do it, and we don't get a good enough contract. I know you're nodding your head, Alan, but I want to make sure that we have the right people in place, as Commissioner Herr spoke about, that specialize in debris, and that we're not excluding ourselves from those people that do that.
So I agree with what pretty much has already been said, and I do believe we should leverage the may clause to our benefit, to our citizens' benefit, number one. But I think as I look across this, all this might be a little premature, because quite frankly, I watched one of the sweethearts of this current administration in Washington request for her state FEMA funds for the record flooding in that state. Didn't receive a penny. The funding mechanism for all of this, and we're talking about FEMA, we don't even know how the FEMA stuff is going to work and either come to the county, go to the state, then to the county, or if it even comes at all. And that's the one thing that I've been very cautious in speaking to our citizens about this tax issue that we're addressed with, and the shortfall in funding, is the unknown on what's going to happen with emergency management and FEMA dollars. You know, we hope and we pray that there'd be some consideration similar to historically what we've received, but we frankly just don't know. And I think that's a big concern, that we have to be like, wait a minute, time out. We have Senate Bill 180, but they haven't even told us how they're going to fund us if FEMA is going to give them dollars or not, or whether the state's going to be forced to fund our own FEMA-type organization. So I think this is a wait and see. I think this is going to evolve along the ways as things unfold. But I think anything that's in there that we can leverage to the benefit of our taxpayers and our citizens, we absolutely should do so. One of the big challenges that I ran into, especially in my district, and y'all probably did the same, is when garbage becomes commingled with hurricane debris, and what is hurricane debris versus not hurricane debris, and who picks up what and who sorts it out. And if it weren't for the current carriers that we currently have and their willingness to take on some of these gray areas on the citizens' behalf, a lot of it probably would still be sitting there. And our code enforcement people would be out citing people for not keeping things clean. So, you know, I don't know that there's an easy answer. We move forward, we see what the legislature does, but I'm really concerned about the funding aspect of where this goes. And so all this ends up being premature to what we don't know is the funding mechanism coming from the federal government, which historically we get. So.
Mr. Chairman, you hit on it absolutely right. It is, as over the next couple of weeks, we'll be talking more and more about our budget and how we're going to be adopting it this month. But one of the main factors when we looked at our general fund reserves, which that's where all the first FEMA expenses will come out of before we're even reimbursed, is that we wanted to ensure that we had 60 days of operating expenses in our reserves, and that was our main goal, as this board knows, as we move forward, just for the unknown that as we have been experiencing this past year. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
And I think Alan's going to have poor Alan and his groups, until we get some clarifications on how this is all going to work.
We
I'm
received
glad we haven't had a hurricane yet.
clarification yesterday, and so yesterday, literally at 1:30, we had a call with the state on the 5th different option. So there is no clear. So what we're doing is appropriate, and it's happening in every county and parish, really, in the United States. We don't know, as you mentioned, the state, we don't know if we're going to get federally declared at all. And if we do, it won't be at 100%, most likely. We've been told maybe 75-25. And you may not even get that.
Right.
And you may be a block grant, and you may not even get that. So yesterday's conversation was even worse. So what we're doing is appropriate for our residents for public safety.
Right, great, thank you. Any further inquiries on this item? Commissioner Hur?
Not necessarily on this item, but that begs the question of a 60-day reserve. We're teetering.
Right.
I mean, it just begs the question.
Right. No, it's definitely on the
All
edge.
it takes, as you know, is one.
Backed up by another one.
Correct.
Charlie Francis Jean.
All right, sir, please proceed.
If there's no further questions, I'm going to pass the baton to Deputy County Attorney Nathan Worker,
Seriously happy
who
about
will
that.
get into the less interesting land use stuff.
Good morning.
And I thought I was going to be the only Debbie Downer to talk on this presentation, but I guess not. We're all downers. Good morning, Nasa Borker, Deputy County Attorney. I am following up Mr. McHugh to talk about the other portion of Senate Bill 180, which surprisingly got into land use law. What this bill does is sets up two distinct restrictions. Both of the restrictions limit local government's ability to propose or adopt moratoriums on construction, reconstruction, or redevelopment, more restrictive or burdensome comprehensive plan or land development code amendments, or I should say, and more restrictive or burdensome procedures for review of site plans, development permits, and development orders. And those are all as defined in the Florida statutes. So we have two separate restrictions that do those three things. The first restriction is the addition of a new statute, section 252.422, and this is a restriction that applies to all county and municipal governments to the state. Specifically, it applies to an impacted local government, which an impacted local government for county purposes is a county that's listed in a federal disaster declaration, located either entirely or partially within the 100-mile tract of a storm declared to be a hurricane by the National Hurricane Center while the storm was characterized as a hurricane. So if you are a county that is within that tract while the storm was a hurricane, then this new section, this new statute applies to you. And it prohibits impacted local governments from proposing or adopting what I said on the last slide, moratoriums, more restrictive and burdensome procedures, or comp plan or land development amendments for 1 year after the hurricane makes landfall. So during that period of time, and this is an ongoing requirement, anytime a hurricane comes in, if you're an impacted local government, by this definition, for 1 year after that hurricane makes landfall, you cannot make any changes to your comp plan, land development code processes that are considered more restrictive or burdensome. I will stay here that there's no definition for more restrictive or burdensome. We don't know what that means. If we change an application to require the parcel ID number or something else, is that more burdensome? If we require, or is it a combined more restrictive or burdensome? If we make something allowed to happen, but we also put some restrictions on that, does that fall under that? We don't have clarity at this time of what that means. We are doing our best to interpret that as we go through our land development code amendment process, which we'll talk about next, but at this point, we don't have a clear idea of what that is. So this is restriction number 1. This applies all the time from here on out. Restriction number 2 is a section of the bill that was added, and that looked retroactively. It prohibits each county that was listed in the federal disaster declaration for hurricanes Debbie, Helene, or Milton from proposing or adopting moratoriums or more restrictive and burdensome changes until October 1st, 2027. So if you are a county, and most counties in the state fall under this with one of these 3 storms, You cannot adopt anything that's more restrictive or burdensome or moratoriums until October 1, 2027. And you also have to look back, because it applies retroactively to August 1st, 2024. We have done that. Before this bill actually was adopted, right when we found out that this was a new language in there, we immediately, myself and the Development Services Department, looked back to make sure that we hadn't done anything that would violate this provision, and it was our determination that we had not adopted anything that would violate this. So we're in the clear looking back. Now our concern is moving forward. So right now, we cannot make any changes until October 1, 2027. No moratoriums or no more restrictive or burdensome changes. The last thing that this bill did was provide causes of action to two different groups of people. For restriction 1, so this is the section of the statute that applies now going forward for 1 year after a storm hits, it gives any person the ability to file for declaratory and injunctive relief to challenge any changes that are made that may violate this section of the statute. The person that's challenging is required to notify the county that they're going to challenge, and the county has then 14 days to revoke the action that is being challenged or declare it void. If that is done, then obviously the case doesn't move forward, but if we don't do it and we do move forward and we lose, there's an attorney's fee provision. The county also has an option to request a determination and say, hey, court, we have these land development code amendments coming through. Can you tell us whether or not we're in violation of this statute? We have the option to do that. For restriction number 2, and this is the Debbie, Helene, and Milton restriction till 2027, it gives a resident or business owner the ability to file for declaratory and injunctive relief. If successful, they're entitled to attorney's fees unless we repeal or issue a notice of intent to repeal within 14 days. So they're a little bit different, relatively the same. But just keep in mind that right now we're operating under that October 1, 2027 restriction. Moving forward, you're about to hear the land development code amendments that are being proposed. We think there's a lot we can still do, make clarifications, do some things that need cleanup in the code. All these things are being looked at individually to determine whether or not they may violate this. And we obviously will not be putting something in front of you that we think will do that. We will not want to open ourselves up to any liability. I will say that we have been approached by the law firm Weiss Sirota regarding whether or not we'd be interested in joining an effort by multiple counties and municipalities around the state to challenge Senate Bill 180. This offer went out to everyone, all the counties and cities in the state, and it requires us, if we'd like to be a part of the litigation, if Seminole County would like to do that, there's a $10,000 flat rate that we would pay, and then we would be put in as a party to that litigation. I don't have a list of who's in or out now, but there are a number of counties that are part of this lawsuit. Also, I'll just end with, most of you were at the chamber yesterday and witnessed some of our representatives speaking on Senate Bill 180. I don't know what your feeling was from that, but mine was not very hopeful that we were going to have a change made to this, or it was just going to go away. It appears that this is what we're living with for right now and will be for a while. So that's the end of my presentation. If you all, obviously, to join this litigation, you will have to discuss it and let us know whether or not you're interested in joining. But that's all I have on Senate Bill 180, if you have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Borkert. We'll start at this end with Commissioner Hurd, work our way up across. As you may remember, I brought this to the board 3 meetings ago. whether we had any interest in joining with some of our sister counties on this 180, and I think the consensus, at least at that time, was we did not. But if that's a discussion anybody wants to have, I'm happy to have it again. Commissioner Herr?
I don't know that I need to have that discussion again. I think we came to a wise conclusion. I have a question on 878, at least request that we spend some time there, and that's the restriction number 1 slide. A county listed in a federal disaster declaration located entirely or partially within 100 miles of the tract of the storm. Everything in that sentence is very interpretable, other than within 100 miles of a tract of a storm, which maybe in Alan's world, he knows exactly what the tract of the storm is and how wide it is. Is it the cone? Is it not the cone? Is it like, I think we need to spend some time there. Just
Right.
from my perspective, that's
Right, so the track of a
huge
storm
debate.
declared to be a hurricane by the National Hurricane Center. So I guess the question that you're asking is the track of a storm obviously it's the track of a storm that occurs. I don't think it's the proposed track of the storm because that goes everywhere, but I'm assuming that it would be the final track of the storm as issued
But how
by the-
wide is the track of the storm? Is it the eye of the
Right.
storm? Is it the width
I
of the
don't know if
storm?
it's
Is
the
it the cone?
I don't know if it's the
cone,
extent
it's
of-
George is included.
Right.
In our
I don't-
legislation.
Right. I don't know. It says characterized as a hurricane, so that gives us some insight that maybe the track of the storm is the windshield as it goes out from the eye for hurricane force winds and not tropical storm force winds.
Yeah.
If I was having to do an off-the-cuff interpretation of the language, that's probably what I would say. It was the track of the final track of the storm to the extent that that experienced hurricane force winds, as opposed to tropical storm force winds. But
Just worthy of spending some time in that space in this interpretation.
yes, and as soon as we can get any type of interpretation on this being so new, we will definitely pass that along to you.
I'm good.
Commissioner Delory?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to thank staff for their review and keeping us up to speed, up to date as things have been unfolding. I think you've all done a wonderful job, and I would agree with Commissioner Herr. I'd like to have a little more definition of what that actually is, from what point out, and from the storm. That's the end of my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Constantine?
Since we've had 2 questions from 2 commissioners on that, Alan, do you have any comment on this? I mean, as to what it does mean before I speak?
Alan's making it up as he walks up.
I'm glad you're here. Well,
Kai, I asked the question last week about this too, so I'm interested.
So we are currently listed in the federal declaration, of course, for Hurricane Milton. So from everything that we've heard from the federal government through the Emergency Management Caucus, through the International Association of Emergency Managers and the Florida Emergency Preparedness Association, which are 2 largest associations, as long as you're listed on the declaration,
You're in.
and the declaration has been extended by the state, and the local state of emergency has been extended, as well as the federal declaration has continued to be extended. That allows us, it's good for us in a way, because we're still making requests for federal reimbursement for some of those costs that we incurred over last year. So it's good for us in one way. It's bad for us when it comes to this.
So I understand when we're in. That's not the question. And the reason why I think it's when are we out? So if we're not declared, but we're in, how are you defining the 100? That's going to be where, I don't want to be figuring this out at the point that we're on the edge.
yeah, I mean, so it doesn't say what Alan just said.
Right.
Right? So I'm sorry, Alan, I'm not saying that to be facetious, but it doesn't say that if you're declared as being in a state of emergency, that's not what it says. So that's why I understand your confusion about this. I am of the same state of confusion. And as soon as we can get some more, insight as to this, then
Right, but if they wanted to just say, hey, there was a state of emergency declared for this storm, if you're on that list, then you're in and this applies, then conceivably they would have said that.
Yep.
Mr. Constantine, we're back to you. Are you okay?
No, that was just a question. Now I have statement. For the same reasons that the others have indicated about the first section of this bill in emergency management, I really don't know whether, the balance of scales are good or bad about that. It's something that we could potentially work with the May, but at the same time, if it works, don't try to fix something that's working. And I think that Commissioner Herr was correct when they said that this is probably put in there so that local, smaller governments have some flexibility. But we don't even know about FEMA yet. So I wish you all the luck when negotiating on the waste side. However, on the land development side, I do have some very major concerns. And the major concerns could go all the way down to things that are sacrosanct in this county, including the Wekiva Protection Area and the rural boundary. But let me just say that the practical application of this bill is an Anti-Citizen Protection Act. This is essentially giving carte blanche to developers that don't want to change anything, and what is the definition of doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. When we have a disaster, we learn things. We learn things about flooding, buffering, utilities, wetlands, open space, all the way down to landscaping. And to say that, that basically, and this is an interpretation, this is not, as NASA, our attorney says, any attorney can interpret it pretty much, in a number of different ways. And we have some wonderful developer attorneys that we are dealing with right now on some other issues like Live Local and other things that have found their own interpretation to fulfill their own needs, which are specifically to put more and more density where they probably, not probably, but where they should not exist. So what we essentially have here is an assault, and one of the greatest assaults I've ever seen on home rule. Even some of the senators that voted for it have said to me they didn't know completely what was in this bill when it was brought over from the House. And that's what happened. Most of this land use was brought over from the House at the last minute and put into this. But it is subject to interpretation, and it's also subject to an ongoing cycle that we may never see the end of. Right now, it's until October 27. Think about that. October of 2027. That if we saw opportunities to protect some of our low-lying flooding areas that in the past had been mistakes that had been built there, we can't do anything. Open space, potentially, wetlands, all the things that I buffers, all the things that I have indicated, it suggests to me that they are putting, just tying our hands from doing what we're supposed to do, the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens. It is, again, a developer-friendly bill, and our job is not to ensure that developers get what they want, regardless of the protection of the citizens of Seminole County. Now, I just heard two commissioners that I respect a great deal, saying they don't want to reopen the discussion about getting involved in the lawsuit with 180. And I respect that opinion, except for the fact of what we've said before, the unintended consequences of this thing. We will be in this bill
potentially forever with this. And certainly, developer lawyers will make sure that it's a court case no matter what, that we would be in this forever if it is to their advantage. We may not want to get involved in the lawsuit today. I had conversations with Florida Association of Counties legislative director and executive director yesterday. There are 2 counties right now that are in this lawsuit. There are more than 8 to 10 cities, more coming in, cities and counties all the time. But I will say to you that whether or not we get into the lawsuit at this time, we definitely should take a stand on saying this bill is a direct and horrific attack on local government home rule, continues to promote mandates and certainly preemptions. And for us to be quiet about that is basically we're abstaining from our own responsibilities.
Commissioner Lockhart.
Question about cause of action on restriction 1. The county can request a court determination to determine if the proposed action violates the statute. What court would we be asking for the determination from?
That is the, hold on, I'm just trying to find it. I believe it's a circuit court.
Would it be?
Oh, it's a court of competent jurisdiction.
So a county court?
Yep.
Or could we file it? Do we have a choice, I guess is my question, of where we would file that request?
It's a court of competent jurisdiction. So I don't know, Kate, I don't know if you can help me out with that. I'm not a litigation attorney.
Guessing, since it just says a court of competent jurisdiction, it would depend on what cause of action we file, but I would assume we would file a declaratory action asking the court to look at the county's ordinance and declare whether it violates the Senate Bill 180 provisions, and so that would be circuit court.
So I'm not suggesting that we bog down the court system at all, but if some of the things that Commissioner Constantine rightly points out we are faced with, and we think for the health and safety of our community, we need to move forward. I think I'd like to know whether or not that could be an emergency cord pull for us on some of those things, and maybe without joining a class action suit, we could get an opinion on those types of things that directly impact our citizenry. I'm ambivalent about joining the lawsuit or not. I'm not sure. I'd like to know I want to see a Ben Franklin T of the advantages and disadvantages of being a part of it. But if there's an opportunity for us to get a court's opinion on something that may come our way that we believe we need to see, that might be another route for us. Perhaps. I'm not sure. No, not necessarily. Okay. Maybe not.
Did you add something, Commissioner
Yes,
Constantine?
Mr. Chairman, I concur with Commissioner Lockhart. And I'm not asking us to join this lawsuit now. What I'm asking for us is to take a stand and say that this bill is against, the Constitution of the state of Florida when it comes to home rule preemptions mandates. And I would simply say that, we need to take this step by step. And the first step I would suggest is just a strongly worded letter to the legislature saying that they should revoke what's the word that I'm thinking of, Commissioner Hurd? Take back this bill.
Rescind.
Rescind. Thank you. I could not think of it at the second. Rescind this bill, and at the very least, rework it so that, again, you don't have the anti-home rule and preemptions. And that's what I think the first step is. I will tell you, and I failed to say this, that the Florida Association is taking strong measures to try to do exactly that. Amending it may not be possible, although they are working on some things. But rescinding it and taking it off the books, I think, is the best thing that they could do, especially on the land development side.
So
I think we should.
I agree pretty much with everything that everybody has said, but I take a little different look at this, and I don't disagree. In the purest sense, this is an assault on home rule. There is no question about it. I tend to give the benefit of the doubt to our legislatures to a certain extent, that you don't have to look far around this state where there are some bad actors, both cities and counties. And there were other methods and means in which this could have been handled specifically for those specific counties by those harmed by those decisions by the local body. And so I think, and my hopes are, in talking to our legislatures, that this upcoming legislative session, there is going to be some reconsideration. There is going to be some, hopefully, cleanup. But I do not believe we need to let our guard down. I do believe that we should be communicating our dissatisfaction with this to weigh in. As far as joining a lawsuit at this point, I think it's premature. I think our staff has looked at everything that we've done so far, and I'm hearing that we have no issues and no problems. It is friendly to developers. It's easy to say this is a run by developers under the guise of emergency management declaration, and perhaps it is. It's yet to be seen. I don't know that we're in peril, but the problem becomes, because of the time constraints, it's going to be a perpetual for always being into this, because there's not hardly a season that goes by that we're not part of a hurricane season. And so you get to 27, now we're extended out to 29, then 32, then 35, and 37. And I think we need to take a stand, if nothing more, on the home rule side of this, and voice our dissatisfaction, voice our recommendations from our perspective on how it impacts our citizens in our county, and let the legislature hopefully come back next session and clean some of this up to where it's reasonable and palatable, is what I would like us to do.
And Commissioner, and I don't want to prolong it, but I do want to say this. The history of this, and the very short history of this, is the fact that Manatee County had some serious flooding in the last hurricane. And Manatee County, a red county, by the way, made some changes with the agreement of the citizens in flooding. A certain development group got to their House of Representatives and Senator, and they put this into general law for the entire state of Florida. Right. Okay? If you want to talk about unintended consequences. And so, clearly, once again, you can say bad actors. I personally think that Manatee was doing the right thing for their citizens at the right time in protecting them from continuing flooding and not doing the same thing over. And in fact, we're, making measures to not only work with the citizens that lived in these flood-prone areas, but making sure that it didn't happen again. But that wasn't satisfactory to the very large development group that was down there, because they didn't like that outcome. The point is that, again, we could throw this out, say it's not affecting us at all, but it is an assault on home rule of the highest degree. And that's where I think that our letter, and I believe we should do it, and I'm going to ask for a motion that I will make, that we will ask our ask our county manager, we're working with the attorney, to bring back a letter that we can send to the legislature and other meaningful groups stating our objection of this, mostly based on home rule. And, time and time and time again, we have seen this. Mandates, preemptions, all of these are costing us money. All of them. And at some point, we've got to take a stand. What was the old adage? I wasn't certain things, so I didn't mind. And then they went after this, and I wasn't that, and I couldn't go on. I know what the exact words are, but I'm just saying, and eventually I was it. I was the only one, and there was no one there to help me. We have to take a stand on this.
Are you prepared to make a motion?
I so move that we ask the county manager, working with the attorney's office, to come up with a letter of, serious concern and request for rescinding of this bill.
Can I get a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Second, further discussion.
For discussion.
Commissioner?
So I agree that communicating our concerns is very important. I agree that every opportunity we have to point out the unintended consequences of bills that come out of Tallahassee that impact our citizens, that we have an obligation to point those things out. I don't know that calling for the entire rescission of a bill is as far a step as I would be willing to go at this point, because I don't fully understand the entire bill and everything that's in it, and maybe something good that might be in there, I don't know. So I'm on board with communicating and putting something in writing that expresses our concern. I don't know that I want to burn the barn down at this point.
I don't disagree. I think the letter should be written as pointed towards home rule and local jurisdiction having, the powers that we typically have to do what's best by our citizens. I don't think it does any good to point out anything in the bill, because quite frankly, none of it's been interpreted. It's all been put out there. A judge has never interpreted any of it yet. It's not been challenged that I'm aware of. So for us to say, this is wrong, that's wrong, this is blah, 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 I think the home rule, and leave it at that, sends enough message of them. I mean, they understand what's going on, some of them.
I'll accept a friendly motion to that effect.
Chairman.
Commissioner Hart.
I've not aggressively, but I've been waving my hand for a little while.
Just smack me on the arm.
That potential does exist.
Be careful what you ask for.
Or steal my chocolate.
You get what you ask for. Listen, I'm the newest up here to this process, but I don't want to make it a game. And quite honestly, that I don't want to grandstand. I want to work with our legislators to modify, to get to the intent of the bill, which we feel was ill intent, or at least one of us feels was ill intended. I don't. I think that we send good people to the legislature and we ask them to do good work, and just like us, they're human and it doesn't always come out the way we expect it to come out, and we need the ability to refine and modify and move on. But declaring a war doesn't get us anywhere from my perspective. I would also say that it's not really gone through the process of codification yet, and we're already up in arms about it, which based on the interpretations of it here are very fair, but we don't have full understanding of it. The time frame is exceptionally concerning. There are areas of this that are exceptionally concerning, particularly when you're in the middle of the state. I think it has a greater impact on us in the middle of the state than it does on the extreme ends of the state. So I think we need to work in collaboration with ours and other legislators to move the needle on this in a positive direction so that it addresses the intent that was there, the good intent that was there. I'll also say that I don't love the notion that we say this is a developer-friendly bill or a not developer-friendly bill. Property rights matter. And developers don't get to develop if a property owner isn't willing to sell, and the property owner has some rights that go along with owning property in this country. And we can't move away from that either. So we seem to forget that when we're having the discussion of our disdain for this legislation. I think there are other ways to move a needle, and I think we should take the high road to doing that. And I also think I expect at least our local legislators to take the high road with us and attempt to move this in a positive direction. That's my take on it. But we start throwing in on lawsuits and sending letters, and all we're going to talk about is the letter. That's not what we should be talking about. We should be talking about what could we be doing. We should be relying on our legal team to give us advice of, if this was tweaked and that was tweaked and that was tweaked, this might be a good idea. Here's the reality of it. There were probably property owners in that community that couldn't afford to rebuild their house because the insurance reimbursement isn't going to reimburse it back to new standards. That's just not how it's working. So we talk about the willingness to protect our citizens. There is a protective piece of this for our citizens if we are wiped out. And so I look at it entirely differently. But again, I don't have all of the experience that you all do.
Mr. DeLaury, then Commissioner Lockhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would agree with a lot of things that have been said here, and I think a proactive approach by working with our legislators, we all know them, our citizens know them as well, they're good people. I don't think they have purposely gone out to try to assault local government. That's not their nature. And anyone that I know of directly up in Tallahassee, there's a lot of people in Tallahassee I don't know. However, I also believe that I remember back in the day when I first got elected, and there was some home rule issues involved. And Commissioner Henley wrote a letter, and myself and Commissioner Henley and a couple other commissioners went to Tallahassee, and we met with some of the senators, and he wrote the letter, and I believe Senator Constantine was up there and said that he had the letter in his pocket. And it was quite the event. And I was amazed on how well it would work if we were to work with them and express our concerns and to try to work through those concerns. That's a lot easier than drawing a line in the sand, as Commissioner Hurst spoke about, and to try to work with these individuals that they may not understand truly what the concerns are of Seminole County or Central Florida. And yes, some of them do come from local government. Yes, they should understand the ramifications and the unintended consequences, but it's our responsibility to also point it out to them. And we need to be doing it civilly. We need to be working with them. And as someone said, to take the high road. Yes, take the high road, but we want people to work with us. We want the cities to work with us instead of us beating them over the head and drawing a line. And I think that we can get a lot more done by doing it that way than just joining individuals that want to be just saying, throw this whole thing out. Figure out what those definitions do mean. Our attorneys have questions. Let's get the questions answered to figure out what they actually mean first.
Commissioner Lockhart.
I think it's possible to send a letter that is collaborative and still expresses our concerns.
Agreed.
When I was chairman of the school board, we had a lot of testing regulations and requirements and things that were coming down that were going to be incredibly difficult for local school boards to implement. And we took the position that rather than just saying no, as a board, we were going to provide a solution, and we created the Seminole Solution. And we wrote a very well-crafted, collaborative-type letter that expressed all of our concerns. We didn't compromise on the concerns that we had or the problems that existed by what was being done, but we offered ourselves as a solution and said, we understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Let us help work with you to craft a solution that benefits all parties. It was very well received. The Commissioner of Education only ignored me in an elevator once in Tallahassee, so that was nice. But I think, Commissioner Constantine has the benefit of having been in the legislature and experienced what it's like to be on the receiving end of some of these very pointed letters and issues. And I think with his passion on this and the help of staff crafting a letter in a way that makes it much more collaborative to achieve Commissioner Herr's concerns. This isn't just about our local delegation, and I know we all know all of them, and they are all wonderful people, and they all are very well-meaning. This, respectfully, has to do with chairmanships of committees and leadership, right? So we can talk to our personal delegation members all we want. We need to communicate into other parts of the organization. So that's my 2 cents on that, with my second of the motion and with the friendly amendment.
Okay. And by the way, I do agree. If you're going to voice your opinion about a problem and concern, it is best suited that you're bringing a solution along with it, or at least that olive branch of, we're here to work with you and help you understand what our concerns are to get the best bill of today. The reality is, this is the law at this time. And the problem with this law is it's yet to be tested, it's yet to be interpreted. Courts will ultimately decide if these other counties are going into this lawsuit. My guess is that's 2, 3, 4 years down the road, knowing how the systems work. So I do agree that a letter can be drafted appropriately in a friendly fashion, but yet voicing our concerns that our citizens would expect us to do.
Chairman?
Commissioner Constantine.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Herr.
I just want to say one thing.
Then I'm going to call the question.
I think that what you have all said about, doing it in a collaborative way, getting it to the leadership, not our delegation, but the leadership and those that have proposed this is appropriate. And as I said, we have to take it step by step. There is no one here that believes any stronger in private property rights than I do. But private property rights extend to those people that are next to other people with private property rights. They have private property rights also. And the fact of the matter is, the solution is not the same everywhere. One size does not fit all. And there are 67 different counties, and there's over 400 cities in this state. And I can't even count the number of special districts that there are. And to say that no one can do anything about and making it more restrictive, and that is up for interpretation, the word restrictive. So that could mean making them, file another piece of paper, for God's sake. I'm not grandstanding here. I am stating a fact that we all know, that there is a major assault on local government. And if there has anyone that has declared war, it is the legislature on local government and on home rule. And that's what I'm trying to point out. I'm not going to war. I don't want to go to war. I don't like this at all, that we have to point out to them that, local government is the best government, and small government was a precept of the majority party in the state many years before they got elected and decided that everything should be moved to Tallahassee. Thank you.
Mr. Herr.
I'm going to just, that's it. So the discussion of the letter, we're having two entirely different discussions, and I don't want to send a team away.
I think there's 3.
I'm ignoring the first one. So I think, I remember the letter from the school district. I remember that process. And there was a significant amount of work that went into going through and figuring out what an alternative was and how do we do this, and it was line itemed out. And so the notion of a letter going in, just stating what the problems are without a solution that's not what we're asking for. I don't think that was what you were originally asking for. I think you were agreeing with that, but the words that came out didn't sound like you were agreeing with that. So when somebody goes back and listens to the tape, we're going to have a letter that comes back that isn't what everybody likes.
Right.
I think the letter has to have meaningful feedback in it that isn't just, we don't like this and it's an assault. And I think that's what you were asking for.
I think that's what I said.
You did.
And I'm
Yeah.
fine with that.
Jay's response was a little bit different.
Oh, I-
And so when we, and I didn't take it differently either, but when you go listen to the words,
Okay.
team goes off and does something different. So I just wanted to get it out on the record that what you were asking for is what we are agreeing to.
Okay.
Motion second.
And
All tho-
amended. And
And
amended.
amended. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, like sign? Carries unanimous. So question on that, now that we got through that. So I've been through this whole thing. We've just gone through. And everything that they've tried to do here is a Bert Harris action. At the end of the day. Why did we go to all this rigmarole if I currently, under
Bert Harris.
Bert Harris, could come claim the same thing anywhere in this state?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Was that towards me?
no, I'm just,
And
all of
also,
these, all of these things taking away property rights, regardless of whether it's a hurricane-related or emergency management-related, is all Bert Harris action if we were to take away under the disguise.
Mr. Chairman, just point of order, can we have our attorney briefly, in 1 or 2 sentences, define what a Bert Harris Act is?
The Bert Harris Act gives a cause of action against local governments who adopt a land use restriction that is impacting that landowner's investment-backed expectations for the property.
Okay, just want to make sure the public is aware of that. Thank you, Mr.
I
Chairman.
mean, I'll also just point out that, like, none of this affects the FEMA rule, which is if you've had impact over 50% of your value of your property, then you have to build back to the current regulations anyway. So, yeah, I'm at a loss to try to provide you with guidance why this was so sweeping for everything rather than, certain things. I'm sorry, I can't provide any more guidance on that. But I think I've heard you as far as what letter you want to see and how we can maybe add some examples in there of this is the potential impact here.
Right.
It's current regulations, not quickly revised regulations. I think.
Right, well, any
Yet to be
regulation.
interpreted regulations.
Right, any
Current
regulation that's been put in place, from the hurricanes 5 years ago that you learned something
Right.
from.
Right.
It's ever evolving.
So I would ask that, in the interest of saving time for everyone, that you circulate and make sure that you get with each commission office and make sure that they've seen it and reviewed it, and so we don't have to come back here and debate it another 2 hours, then go a different direction. That'd be great. Thank you.
So I'm just going to say, with the exception that if one of us wants it to come back here, it needs to come back here.
Of
If we're
course.
signing on everybody's
Of course.
behalf. But this notion that we can suddenly come to a conclusion, we can't even come to a conclusion on the procedures for running our own meetings in that model. They're still sitting on my desk unchanged because we tried that and it didn't work. I think this is important enough, clearly it's important enough that we bring it back and we really work through it. If we're expecting to move a needle, then we need to invest the time.
It should come back.
I would expect it to come back. All I'm saying is, in the interest of efficiency,
I'm good with-
circulate it to the commissioners'
Agreed.
offices for their review, so we all don't show up at a meeting, get in the letter and go, okay, I've read it now, let's discuss it. I don't always fill in the 25 pages of backup that some people need, and I'm not going to do it. So, anyway, my take on it. All right, next, please.
All right, good
Mr.
afternoon.
Gomez, welcome.
Thank you. Jose Gomez, Development Services Director. I'm going to be presenting on the Land Development Code, work session number 3, some of the additional proposed changes for discussion, and Maya Athanas will also present. So just the agenda, I'm not going to belabor it, but we're going to go through the background, timeline, Senate Bill 180, which I'm not going to talk about any further, but except just to say there may be things that are on the edge of more burdensome or more restrictive, and we can have those discussions as we go along. Low density, lot sizes and low density residential, that's actually a continuation from work session number 2. We're coming with an additional proposal there for your consideration. Updates based on applications of variance trends, updates based on comprehensive plan, updates based on streamlining the process, and then finally updates requested for discussion, which are things that we really do need more input from the board before we move forward with anything. And then some general updates and next steps. So just a background, we're continuing to amend the LDC based on our Envision 2045, community feedback, and board input and staff input. Work session number 1 went over fence permitting requirements, I-4 signage updates, general sign code updates, PD approval process review, and centers and corridors overlay. We went over those things. We got proper direction. We know where to move forward with all that. Work session number 2 was affordable housing density bonus. We're still working on that, and we'll bring a proposal here in the future. Zoning districts with an LDR, which is where I'm going to touch base on a different proposal there from what we presented previously. Small lot, mixed-use zoning districts, open space standards, buffer standards, walls and fences for commercial development and subdivisions, which were previously discussed. So just a reminder of where we are. We're in work session number 3. Really, after this work session, we're going to go heavy into code drafting, where we'll be bringing you a draft of the Land Development Code changes in the near future, hopefully in the fall/winter of 2025. Senate Bill 180, the only thing I'll mention here is that the rural enclaves that we were working on we're not moving forward with those because they are more burdensome and more restrictive, regardless of how you define that. Okay. So the lot sizes and low-density residential, we went back to the drawing board on this one. We originally we were proposing to have R1B and R1BB, which are normally medium-density residential standards, allowed in low-density residential. And really the goal is to really put in straight zoning what the market is requesting. And right now, everybody's requesting PDs to get the 50, 60-foot lots because our conventional zoning is so restrictive on the lot widths. Our conventional zoning also does not require any open space or recreation. So we thought as an alternative standard, we could propose under the R1 and or the R1A that typically are restricted to 70-foot wide lots. Those could request 50-foot lots in exchange for open space and recreation, similar to what's required in PDs. So all of the things that we're getting out of PDs anyway. And then in the R1AA, that requires 90-foot lots, they could go to 70-foot lots with the same requirements. And this is really to, in straight zoning to get more open space and recreation and limit the number of PDs that you're seeing. So at this point on this topic, I'll pause after every topic just to see if there's feedback from the board and direction as we move forward. So I'll solicit that feedback now.
We'll start with Commissioner Herr, work our way across.
I'm good.
I'm good. I'm good. Commissioner Flory?
I'm good.
Commissioner Costine?
From our discussions, there was no increase in density in any of this.
That's correct. It would still be limited to the 4 units per acre in the low-density residential land use.
Commissioner Lockhart?
The only question that I had for staff is, would this apply to someone who was trying to, in a 2-lot situation, create, how do I explain this? Is this only for new developments that are of a certain acreage or more, or could this be in an existing neighborhood where someone goes in and knocks down a couple of houses and reconfigures?
That's a good question. If somebody currently has, let's say, a 100-foot wide lot, and they're in a R1 zoning district, could they come in and say, oh, okay, now I can do this alternative standard because I can go down to that 50 feet?
Right.
Question is, do you have enough area to provide open space and recreation for those 2 lots?
Okay, and
So that would immediately disqualify them from being able to do this.
So 25% of the project area would be the 100 feet by the, so it'd be 10,000 square feet. 25% would be 2,500. Am I doing that right? Am I doing the math right? So if, in your example, if you were to have 5,000 square foot lots, 100, and have the 100-foot wide lot, and want to come in and make it 50, theoretically, then you would have 10,000 square feet. If you were to able, 25% of 10, 2,500, right?
That's right, I believe.
So you would need to designate 2,500 square feet of that 10,000 square feet as open space, which you could probably do if you were going to put a couple of
It
smaller
would have to be
homes on.
common area open space that would have to be available to the entire subdivision.
But is it a does it have to be declared a subdivision? Or could it just be reconfiguring those lots?
So if it were, I'm just going to step in if you don't mind. If it's 2 lots, no, it's not considered a subdivision, it's just a lot split. If it were 3 lots, that would be considered a subdivision, and the 25% of the project area, we can make it to require that 25% is considered a common element and is the responsibility of the HOA. And then, so that would be a separate tract, but then you would still need enough square footage to meet the minimum lot size too.
I guess thank you for that clarification. That's super helpful. So I guess my follow-up question is, would these new recommended lot sizes apply in just a lot split situation, or were we back to the 70-foot wide if it's just a lot split?
We can designate it so that if it's just a lot split, it would not be available for this alternative standard. So that's a distinction that we can make in the code.
I think that would be worthy of our consideration because we have a lot of antiquated plats in this county that have 30 and 40-foot wide, thinking of Midway and other neighborhoods where you could wind up with some really wackadoodle stuff happening. So
yeah, we
if you
will
don't mind.
make that distinction that lot splits would not be eligible for this alternative
Okay.
standard.
All right, thank you for that.
Anything else? Very good, Commissioner Lockhart.
Okay, so the next section, we currently have this table that you see here on the right on the slide in the Land Development Code. It applies to accessory dwelling units so that lots cannot exceed a percent impervious within the zoning districts. The reason this is important is because we're having more and more requests for people that want to come in and pave a large portion of their lot, pave their entire front lot, and it's becoming an issue for stormwater. So what we're proposing is to take this table that's already in the Land Development Code and adopt it to apply in all residential zoning districts. There would be some caveats where with a grading plan where you provide like water quality swales or whatever it may be that could get up to additional 10%. And then within new subdivisions with master stormwater systems, we would allow them to assign a higher impervious area with the design of the stormwater management system that's designed to accommodate that additional impervious. But in your standard infill lot, these percent impervious, maximum percent impervious would apply. If somebody comes in and says, hey, I want my entire front lawn to be a driveway or to be paved, we would point to this and say, sorry, you can't do that because this maximum percent impervious applies in your zoning district.
Okay. Commissioner Lockhart, we'll move our way across.
Okay. Just for clarification, would pavers be considered impervious?
Only, they would be considered impervious unless they were designed as pervious pavement. So yes, we would consider those unless they were actually designed with void space under allowing infiltration into the groundwater.
Okay. So is that going to be made very clear, or is it already made clear in another part of our code?
We can make that clear. It's not clear anywhere in our code currently, but as part of this, we could make that clear.
And in my question about making that clear, is that making it more restrictive?
That is up to interpretation. That's one of those things that we think that this is kind of on the edge of that. If it's something where somebody decides that they want to challenge it, we'll have to work with the county attorney's office and determine that. And Nasa, I don't know if you have any additional input on that.
I don't have any input at this time, but we will definitely be taking that into consideration when we draft these.
Okay. So impervious area would be, let's do the opposite. What's pervious? Mulch, grass, rock?
Sure. Stone, yeah. Stone with sufficient voids to allow for infiltration, because you don't want fines that are going to restrict, but those are interpretations that we make currently based on.
Crushed shell, coquina, like I'm going through my, if like what, I don't know. I'm just, for some reason my brain goes to, how is someone going to figure out how to get around, or how, because that's how my brain works. Like, this is the rule, and then that way, what are you trying to do versus what is someone else going to try to do with whatever rule it is you put in place?
I will say those interpretations, we make those interpretations all the time. There really are interpretations.
Okay.
It's almost impossible to get every scenario in the code, and unintended consequences. Sometimes we put something in there that then makes it, there's some new material out there that.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's a difficult one to really address in the code.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's my question.
Commissioner Constantine.
But the key points that were just made are that there are alternatives to concreting the entire front lawn or back lawn, and that's what we're getting. Sand, coquina, I think they would be fine. Even pavers, in a sense, that are able to absorb the water to get it back into the aquifer, avoid as much flooding. And there again, it's just small and unintended consequence of what 180 does in this, because you're questioning, you don't know, and we'll figure that out as we go along, I guess. But as far as the numbers, I don't know if they're right or wrong. I will bow to your all's expertise, and I think this is a good move in the right direction.
Commissioner Delory?
No comment.
Commissioner Hurd?
I think it's a step in the right direction. I don't necessarily think this, depending on where the home is built on the lot, prevents somebody from cementing their front yard if the backyard's big enough.
That's a good point.
So if that's the goal, because it is a horrible look, that's not where we want to be. And I may or may not have had relatives in my past that have done this in South Florida.
Yeah. So the purpose of this is for stormwater and to reduce flooding, not aesthetic necessarily.
Right, but we on the record said that this would stop somebody from, so I'm just, again, this is apparently my role today, clarifying.
That is a good point.
that-
Now, we will still be able to tell them, hey, you can't go into that 5-foot
Yep.
drainage easement.
Yep. Yep. From my perspective, just to the paver conversation, as I watch neighbor after neighbor after neighbor put down pavers and then have to re-put them down because they hold water, I don't think that's even a debate as to whether or not you can create a pervious paver setup, but that is an entirely different thing from the normal paver thing. The water doesn't go through them.
I agree, and we will make that distinction.
Runs back in their houses. Yeah. I'm good.
So this is a good first step. Under previous director, going back a few years, I had asked why we weren't, after a development has been approved, it's all been built, civil engineering's been done, all the drainage is put in place, then 70% of the new homes get a swimming pool, 30% get a shed, 20% widen their driveway or add sidewalks or whatever they might do. What are we doing in order to ensure that the original civil engineering for drainage in that community is not inadvertently just squelched because of what property rights we all have to build a pool, build a shed, add to our driveway? There's other jurisdictions that require civil engineering for those purposes that we're going to impact adjoining property owners and the community as a whole, or we're overloading what's been designed in the original civil engineering, which is now draining off to a different community. So are we going to carry this over into the building, and when people come in to get a permit, to have some kind of criteria where they're not causing inadvertently to damage and squelch the original intent of the civil engineering?
Yes, and the way we're going to do that, that third bullet there with the new subdivisions, we're going to require every new subdivision as part of those civil plans to identify the maximum percent impervious per lot. And we'll have to verify when the building permit comes in that they are not exceeding that. So that is an additional step that we will be taking.
So, playing devil's advocate for just a minute, they've done that. Mr. and Mrs. Smith buy one home, and the engineering drawings for that developer say they've got, 27% impervious. The Browns buy the place next door, and of course, the developer has met the code for the county and says, theirs is 21%. Who gets to build a pool and who doesn't? If it doesn't meet the criteria, if we're going to take a 30 by 40 foot pool.
It'll be a
And of course,
maximum, yeah.
At that point, one of those two, if they're not able to do it and their neighbor is going to be upset. And I don't know that we have a developer who is conveying to the property owner, oh, by the way, this is your new home, but you don't have enough impervious to add anything.
Yeah, no, that's a
Or
good point.
the minimum square footage you could add of impervious is X.
Yeah.
So how are we going, because that's going to be a fight for our staff.
It's not going to be an overall impervious. There is an overall impervious that's done as part of the civil
Sure.
calculations, but this is going to be assigning an impervious to the specific lot.
Understood.
So,
Requiring it to be disclosed at sale,
Can't do that.
probably more restrictive.
Right.
But that's the question, is
Yeah.
that now
Right.
two
How
people
do they
buy
know?
similar homes and they look exactly the same, but I can build a pool and he can't build a pool. He's going to
Because-
be unhappy.
Because all of us know, we've all sat through these proceedings where
Yes.
somebody's come in with pictures of 6 others in their community going, you tell me I can't have this, and this is 2 blocks from me, this is 3 houses down from me, that's all I want to do.
yeah, and a lot of times those were things, structures that may have been built years ago under different regulations, or were built without permits. So
Sure.
there's
Well, there's that.
There's a code
There's
enforcement
that.
activity that should have occurred with
Right,
some of
right,
those.
right.
But yeah,
All I'm trying to make sure of is, and you can never cover everything 100%, but we sit here and our community is looking to us and saying, since all these hurricanes we've had in the last 5 years, look, we have a drainage problem. I've got more water than I've ever had, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All the while, in that same community, they're complaining about it. We're approving swimming pools, sheds, and other impervious improvements because they have the right to do it. Is there a mechanism we're going to carry this over to say, yeah, you still have the right to do this, but you don't have the right to do something to the point where you jeopardize the overall drainage for that area?
yes.
Which means they're going to have a civil engineer come in and look, or some engineer come in and look and say, this is not going to impact blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. In my view, what we're proposing here is accomplishing, not 100%, because you're right, there's always
Right.
going to be, but it's getting a lot of the way there
Okay.
by adopting this.
All right. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you. Anything else on this one? No, all good.
Okay, great. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Maya Athanas, who's going to continue the presentation, and I'll see you in a little bit to conclude it.
Okay. Ms. Maya, good morning.
Good morning. Can you all hear me all right?
We can.
So we're going to do kind of the same thing, if that's all right with you, where we'll
Please.
pause after each slide. There's only one slide per topic. So the following few topics we're going to go over are updates related to application and variance trends. Okay, so there's a lot of text on here. I'll walk you through it. During the last major LDC update, we added height and size limits to accessory structures on residential properties, which limits those accessory structures to the height of the existing home and 50% of the size of the home. Since then, we've received 12 variance requests for accessory structure height, and all of those have been approved. So we've reevaluated the standards and have recommendations in efforts to streamline the process for residents and property owners, as well as staff. So in A3, A5, and A10, they're already exempt from these limits, and staff recommends adding an exemption for A1 properties that are greater than 3 acres, so they'd be treated the same as A3 because they're really functioning in that capacity. We're also recommending to allow accessory structures to exceed the height of the home, but would be limited to 35 feet, which is the existing limit for the height in our residential zoning districts. However, we are not currently proposing any changes to the maximum size of accessory structures other than that exemption for the A1 properties that are greater than 3 acres. And in any case, when an accessory structure would exceed the height of the home, it would have to be considered architecturally consistent, which would have like materials, similar colors, just to make it cohesive, since it's going to be taller than the home. And we did create a definition that you'll see at the end of this presentation for architecturally consistent. So at that point, we're asking for any feedback or direction.
Start with Commissioner Lockhart and work our way across again.
I think we landed in a good spot with this, and I don't see the need for any changes.
Commissioner Constantine?
Looks like a responsible alternative. Proof is in the pudding.
I'm good. I'm good. Commissioner Herr?
I'm good.
Please proceed.
Great. Okay, again, a lot of text. Similar to the accessory structures, we've also received 16 requests for administrative adjustments for accessory dwelling units, and all of those have also been approved. The administrative adjustment allows ADUs to go from 35% of the gross floor area of the home up to 45%, or 1,100 square feet maximum. Staff is recommending allowing 50% across the board and eliminating the administrative adjustment option altogether. This would be consistent with the requirements for the accessory structures and would streamline the review process for staff and applicants. Lastly, we're suggesting to remove the requirement that the property must be owner-occupied in order to have that accessory dwelling unit. The enforcement of this is not very feasible, and it would also expand housing opportunities throughout the county. At that point, we're looking for any direction on this.
Start with Commissioner Herr and go across.
I'll start with the top and just throw out the notion that if you have a 10,000 square foot house, that you're limited to an 1,100 square foot alternative dwelling or accessory dwelling, and that's just an interesting phenomenon. Maybe I have an inaccurate assessment of that. The middle is awesome. The third one, I have serious concerns about removing the requirement that the primary structure must be owner-occupied. I think we can say that the primary structure must be owner-occupied at the time of the building of the unit. We have venture capitalists that are coming into the market and buying homes and using them as rentals, and this is just going to open up a can of worms where they'll come in, they'll plop a 1,000 square foot something or another in the backyard, and now we have 2 rentals in a neighborhood. And so I think this is problematic.
My take on, I would like to see some kind of consideration adjustment on the top portion. I have a lot of folks in my district that are on 5, 10 acre, 3 acre lots. Some of them are on 1 acre lots that do have 6,000, 7,000 square foot homes. And to build a ADU for either their parents or their children, I'd like to see us have some discussion there. I don't know what the right answer is. I think 1,100 can be too small in some circumstances. I think it could be just right in others. But I also know that we have people, for example, in my district where they have a 1,500 square foot home sitting on 5 acres. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Maybe a better sliding rule, and we could beat that to death, I'm sure. But the final one, I'm absolutely opposed to. I have zero interest in having this go to where I would say adventure some folks would like to go or could go. I think this also presents a public safety concern to our law enforcement and our firefighters on understanding what is in both of those structures. Is it owned by the same owner, or is it owner and somebody that nobody knows that's renting it? Is it a short-term rental, which hopefully we capture through our short-term rental registry? I'm not a fan of the bottom one. Mr. Delory?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would agree with a lot of your sentiments, as well as Commissioner Herr. The first one where it says dwelling units, accessory dwelling units, needs to be based on, if you're going to do this, what size piece of property you have. Because if you have a large piece of property, it just doesn't work. I mean, if you have acres. And then the same thing with the primary structure owner occupied, I'd like to remove that as well. So I'd like to have some more discussion and some more examples of this, of the proposals.
Mr. Constantine?
Yeah, I'm not going to speak on the first or the second. I think that you're just trying to find a balance, and I understand that. On the third one, I have the same and strong objections. You're turning our potential neighborhoods into duplexes, essentially, in many cases. If you allowed, a non-owner occupied, and in places like Commissioner Zimbauer and Delory's area, you're essentially eliminating the 1 per 5 acre and turning it into 1 per 2.5 acre or 1 per. In other words, there is so much opportunity to take advantage of this that we have to just stop it. I get the fact that it's hard to control, but that's the side that we should be working on, how we can control, keeping it owner occupied, as opposed to, well, we can't really do it, so let's just, let's allow it.
Mr. Lockhart?
Regarding the first one, I totally understand how houses that are on acreage and people who have multiple acres, that we need to figure something out for that. But I think for the bulk of suburban Seminole County, that's probably the sweet spot, my personal opinion. Fine with the second one. The third one I see a little differently, just because of all of the different scenarios and the code enforcement situations that I've had in my district. Where a code officer has attempted to prove who is occupying. The word occupy is very interesting. If the owner owns the primary home and they have a mother-in-law in the accessory dwelling unit, and the owner lives in another state half the year, is that still owner occupied? Does it have to be homesteaded or just owner occupied? I think there are more caveats there than we realize. I understand the intent of not wanting to double things up, but at what point, if I have a piece of property and if I own the property and I have family members living in not me, but if I have 2 family members living in that property, are we not able to do that now because I am not living in that property the whole time? I think as our population ages and we have more and more elderly parents who we are trying to take care of, we need to be careful that we're not limiting, it's funny, in my neighborhood, we have someone who has just purchased a home to create an assisted living facility. And it's, it shows up on Google Maps. I was like, wow, okay, didn't know that was here, but apparently it is now because they've put the business in the name of the address, and so it's on Google Maps. And so we can have an assisted living facility with multiple elderly people living in one home, but we're saying that we won't let a main home and an accessory dwelling unit be occupied by someone unless the owner lives there. So it feels inconsistent to me for what we're trying to accomplish. I just would like to have a better understanding of what our goal is all around in those conversations.
Chairman, I can provide a little bit of insight on this and from an enforcement standpoint. Oh, sorry.
If you could, just real quick, to Commissioner Lockhart's point, I think our goal when we started down this path was to try to afford our elderly or those folks that were, getting to their years and not needing a big house to be able to live in close proximity to their loved ones, which would give them an opportunity to stay within the community, but also young families, either the children of the family who lives there, to have an initial starter home to get their family started so they could move on. I heard, and there was staff that said, additional affordable housing. I don't know that we were directing that to the general public. In other words, to someone's point that they just made up here where somebody buys the piece of property, builds a second unit, now they're renting 2 houses out. I don't know that that was ever the goal, as I recall.
Well,
But to your point, to try to concentrate on what the goal was.
Right, but I do think that in all of our affordable housing conversations, we did talk about the lack of affordable housing for people to be able to rent. And so and this is a hypothetical, right? These are all hypotheticals until we have an actual code violation that exists and we have, an attempt to bring people into compliance. And I have couple in my district that have been incredibly complicated because of this. If someone owns a piece of property that they lived in at one point and they had an accessory dwelling unit, and then and then they leave or they move or their family, are they then, is that accessory dwelling unit then supposed to be vacated by the family member who was living there because that primary owner doesn't live there anymore? What happens? What are you telling those people? They have to evict their family members because they have been given a job opportunity to move and they have to go, and so now what do? They leave one of these structures empty? I don't know. I just think
So my initial statement was, at least when they're getting built.
I heard that caveat, but then I didn't hear that.
I get that. So I think it needs to be taken back and reworked. You could also make the argument that you really need to take the words primary structure out of there, because quite honestly, a part of this reason is I may be the one that wants to live in the backyard while my kids maintain the big house.
I have that in my neighborhood right now.
And have them pay for me for the next 40 years in case anybody's watching.
Yeah.
So I just think there's a rework to this that I'm thinking maybe we've provided enough feedback that you kind of know where we all are. Like, we don't want to make it so restrictive that we're kicking somebody out of the house, but we also don't want to open this up. The can of worms that we really need to be careful about is this can be a fairly significant commercial enterprise that walks into the community and says, let's go.
That's already happened around the state.
And it's happening in some of the bigger lot neighborhoods already.
Yeah.
They're sitting there waiting.
And see, in my district, we have people coming in that have 5 acres, and it's got a 2,100 square foot home on it that's 40 years old. They're coming in and wanting to build a 7,000 square foot home and keep the 2,100 square foot structure that's there because they're going to move their children in with them when they move here from wherever they're moving from. So I think if staff could work on some of those areas, then we'll let NASA give us some ideas on enforcement if we were going that direction.
Right, so I think we had this conversation with Commissioner Hurd, her briefing on Friday. I think it's achievable to say when you come in to request the construction or a permit for accessory dwelling unit that you provide proof of a homestead exemption. Where it becomes difficult is the loss of that homestead exemption, and then the interplay with the state's, preemption on short-term rentals and how you have to allow for certain things, and we can't control that. So there is an interplay there where down the line, if, for example, we require a homestead exemption to be in place for the entirety of the time and they lose it,
it would be very, very difficult for us to come in and say, oh, you got to tear this ADU down because it's not, homestead exempt any longer. So that's really what staff's thing, we want to avoid that scenario happening in the future. But there's definitely ways to do it upon application. You provide proof of homestead exemption, and that would be enough to kind of show that it's being occupied, you would hope, by the person that's filing for the exemption. But it's really what happens in the future and enforcement. It's unlikely to be able to enforce that to an extent where you got to remove this ADU because, we open ourselves, I think, up to some liability there.
So to that point, I would never be an advocate of removing the ADU once it's built. And I think devil's advocate on how corporations could work their way around and weave in and out of this very easily. Is there a problem with, I own the property, it's homesteaded, I built an ADU, I'm leasing it out to my son, daughter, or cousin, or whoever it is, or Mrs. Smith off the street. I now sell the property as a complete unit, ADU, main residence, and so forth, in order for that ADU to be used as a secondary residence. Is there a problem with requiring the new owner to be homesteaded in the main residence?
Meaning prohibiting renting?
Correct.
Unless you're homesteaded.
So what came to my mind during your discussion is something that I thought, and also I feel like I'm on a law school exam. I want to say no thank you for that. But what I was thinking about when you all were talking was, for example, the ability to say, okay, if you have an ADU, you have to agree to some type of placement of a deed restriction on your property that says, okay, for this certain period of time, this has to be a homesteaded property. Now, I haven't looked into the legal ramifications of that as to whether or not it would violate the short-term rental, which I think that is the main kind of source of the crux of the issue there, how far that preemption extends. Does it extend to a private agreement, essentially, between the county and somebody that wants to come in and do something that they're not allowed to do, but we're letting them do if they meet certain conditions, which that's what we have in this place, and they've agreed to that? Maybe that's a way to get around it. It's a possibility, but it's definitely something we can look into, given our discussion today.
Is it okay if we let Commissioner Lockhart?
We used to have a provision that if there was a walkway that was covered from the main house to the accessory dwelling unit, that it was not actually considered, it wasn't under the same rules. Does that still exist? So if I built a cottage in the backyard with a covered walkway that was connected, that connected it, because that was how people used to get around this, they would build the covered walkway, does that make that an accessory dwelling unit? Or if I build it that way now, does that make it a part of the house?
I think what Commissioner Lockhart's referring to, and correct me if I'm wrong, before we even had the ADU, there was a provision you could build a second residence on your property.
No, it wasn't a second residence.
Would not be.
You couldn't have a kitchen.
Would not be considered a second residence if it was connected with a breezeway covered with a sidewalk without any cooking or
Right.
kitchen facilities in that unit.
So the cooking facilities is still the threshold there, regardless of if it's attached or detached to the main home, it's still treated like an accessory dwelling unit.
Okay, if it has the kitchen.
Yes.
Which, of course, people just drywall over, and then they come back in after all the building permits are done, and then they put their kitchen in. I mean, we all know what people do, right? Let's not fool ourselves. So I guess, we just had this whole thing about private property rights conversation, and now we're trying to figure out how to restrict people's ability to use their properties. I think we need to be very, very careful about how restrictive we want to be and restricting people's movement of where they live and where they don't live. And, you may not be able to have a homestead for a variety of reasons, but it may be where you live because you may have another home. I don't know. I think we're trying we're trying to avoid something that we think may be happening. I'd like to see how many of these applications we actually are getting right now. I don't know how many.
For the accessory dwelling units?
Right.
We do get more than 16. The 16 was for the administrative
Variances.
adjustment, to have them larger, yeah. We do get a lot of the accessory dwelling unit permits. I could not tell you the number
At some
offhand,
point,
but
if
we
someone
can-
could get me
we can
those
check that.
numbers. Out of a county of 500,000 people, how many are we, is this really the problem that we think it's going to be? I don't know.
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman,
Costine?
I think we've all said what we think, that we have a concern about this, and we've asked the staff to try to come back with some recommendations to avoid it. Let's not try to, I'm not saying you are, but we continue to talk. Let's just not try to create something up here. Let's
So
let
we're all
them bring
good
it
with
back.
letting staff come back with another version?
Yeah, I
based
think,
on
and
our
I think the
input?
additional data element I think that's a really good data element to ask for. The other additional data element, and I don't know that we could figure this out, but how many business enterprise-owned homes do we have in the county that are laying in wait?
Well, I think the problem with that is, and I'll just give myself an example. Mine's in a corporate trust.
I think that's
So are you going to
different.
drill down through that and try to figure that out? So, this could go on and on and on and on and on. And how are you going to count, by example, I know staff has just dealt with 2 in my district that were basically built without any permits or anything. So, that's a whole
'Cause there's no
noth-
rules out
There's a
there.
whole nother.
All right, so we're moving on?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sure that you're all familiar with the alcoholic beverage establishment separation requirements. Usable common space in commercial is dwindling. We've seen that alcoholic beverage establishments are competing with schools and churches and other houses of worship who are starting to establish business and shopping plazas. We reviewed the state statutes for consistency with the separation requirements, and the only requirement from the state is a 500-foot separation from schools. We're recommending we match those state requirements and remove the separation from houses of worship, residential properties, and like uses. That's what you see in the recommendation column. This table also includes an alternative if the board would like to meet somewhat in the middle and be more consistent with what we have now, which would be a 500-foot separation from all uses. In any case, the separation would be measured from building entrance to building entrance to eliminate the complication of measuring from units within a large shopping plaza. Because right now, we do have multiple methods of measuring depending on what the use is, and it has been very complicated and has triggered special exceptions when maybe in other situations it hasn't. So just making that consistent with the measurement method.
We'll start with Commissioner Lockhart and work our way this direction.
Say we stay consistent with the state, make it easy.
Yeah, I think we should stay consistent.
I'll stay with the state's recommendation.
I guess I'll be the odd one out. I like the alternative.
I like the recommendation as presented.
There you go.
You just threw me that softball to make you the odd man out.
That's right.
Okay, easy enough. All right, the next 2 topics are related to our comprehensive plan. So properties with the HIP airport featured land use are required to have airport-related uses per the comprehensive plan. However, those uses are not outright listed anywhere in the comprehensive plan and the land development code and our joint planning agreement with Sanford. So we are recommending that we create that list and then add that list into the land development code. We consulted with the Sanford Airport and the Sanford Joint Planning Agreement to compile the uses you see now. We're also looking for any suggestions or recommendations for any other uses, such as more commercial or more industrial uses.
Okay, start with Commissioner Herr.
My comment on this one was that light manufacturing didn't need to be restricted to light, given the access to rail and the multimodal nature of the airport property. It ought to be open to manufacturing. If we could make a car out there, we should make a car out there.
So I will say, we did take a look at the permitted uses in light manufacturing versus heavy manufacturing, and such boats and auto, all of that, that is also included in the light manufacturing. The only things that are excluded from that, which are considered heavy, are the manufacturing of fertilizers, concrete plants, animal processing, and then things like sealants, adhesives, paint, toxic materials. So the light manufacturing would include a broad list, and those are in our code now.
I'm okay with the list. I just want to make sure that we don't impact the free trade zone that's in that area, which is the largest in the state, actually largest in the southeast, that we don't impact that in some way, shape, or form. I know that Toyota has been looking very closely at running some of their hydrogen vehicle studies out of that general area. So I certainly would not want to restrict that from occurring.
Okay.
Commissioner DeLore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I agree with you as well as Commissioner Herr that I think it's very difficult to limit manufacturing. You don't want a slaughterhouse out there, as you pointed out, but as you stated, we do have one of the largest free trade zones in the southeast, and I'll make sure that we're trying to capitalize on that as much as possible in any which way possible.
Mr. Costin?
I'm good with the list. There's always the opportunity, if something comes in that looks like it's a really good match, they can go ahead and ask for a variance. I'm fine with the list.
Commissioner Lockhart?
My only comment during our briefing about this was there are so many things out there that might exist that we haven't thought of, and to have to put people through the variance process might be over. One of the things that was not on here is education. We have a flight school out there. I don't know if that falls under another one of those categories, but I would like it to be as open an opportunity as possible. There are just so many things that could be done out there related to the airport. I hate to limit it, although I am liking the idea of not having toxic things being manufactured out there. I'm probably okay with that.
Well, have you coordinated, if you've coordinated with the airport, FAA has a lot of regulations of what can happen in and around the airports about such things that could be dangerous or toxic. So I just want to make sure we're meeting all those.
Okay. Yes, we did consult with the airport, but we'll double check with that as well.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, just bringing up what you just said, I think one of the restrictions is affordable housing. Is that correct? That the FAA has restriction near airports? I believe it is. If it isn't, I don't see why we wouldn't put that in.
You mean they restrict having affordable housing?
Isn't that strange?
I don't think so.
Yes, they do. Yes, everything.
If I could interject, I don't think it's just affordable housing. I think it's residential housing within a certain distance from an airport.
Right.
Yeah, just for noise purposes and keeping residences out. Now, I don't know.
I believe it's 65, the 65 DNL zone.
Okay.
And that is actually captured in, I don't know if 65 is the exact number, but it's somewhere between the 60 and 70 DNL zones, and that is captured in our joint planning agreement with the city of Sanford. So we are considering that too.
All right, good. I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay. Next area?
Okay, so you do not need to read this list. This is existing in our comprehensive plan. For some reason, our target industry uses are housed in our comprehensive plan, and we're simply just looking to relocate them into the land development code because that's where all of our other permitted uses are listed, but we're not proposing any changes to this list.
All thumbs up.
Perfect.
Easy. Okay, the next few slides are related to streamlining processes. So Senate Bill 784 allows charter counties to approve plats administratively. Staff recommends moving forward with this, but an amendment to the Land Development Code would be required to implement the administrative approval. We're simply asking for direction on if you would like to move forward with this or leave it how it is.
Start with Commissioner Herr and move across.
I would add it.
I'm good with it.
In thinking about this, I know I had a briefing in my office regarding this with the staff. It's nice to see it so that we actually have the checks and balances to see how long it takes a plat to get approved and if there's any issues with them. So that's one of the pros about having it come before us. So I'd like to keep it the way it is.
Mr. Constantine?
Yes, we've had this discussion before that you really can't change the plat one way or another. I have no problem with this.
Keep it as
Mr. Lockhart?
Go with the recommendation to make it administrative approval.
Plat timing is a wonderful opportunity for a dashboard, just saying.
Okay, so Missing Middle is a new zoning district. As we received the first few applications this year, staff has noticed a few things that need to be clarified or revised. The first clarification is listing exactly what needs to be shown on the development plan. A development plan is required at time of rezone, but it doesn't state what needs to be shown on that. Very specifically, we would like to clarify that the type of unit is shown on the plan. There are different types allowed, like small single-family or townhomes or condos. So when it's coming in for a rezone, we'd like you all to be aware of what exactly they're doing. We're also recommending removing the prohibition of hammerheads, since the Missing Middle projects are expected to be infill and are already limited based on the surrounding existing development. Lastly, we just need to clarify that Missing Middle projects are eligible for the affordable housing density bonus that all of our other residential zoning districts are eligible for. And that's it on this one.
Commissioner Lockhart, start with your end.
Go with the recommendation.
Recommendation.
Recommendation with a caveat. I agree that you can remove the hammerheads, but I just want to make sure that emergency response vehicles like large fire engines
Right.
can turn around.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be a problem.
I'm good with the recommendation.
I'm good with the recommendation, although I would title this as a clarification and not an update to the zoning.
Okay, absolutely. Moving on. The R3 and R3A zoning districts currently require a development plan. A little bit different from the last one, though. It actually lists a whole bunch of things that need to be included in the development plan. However, the typology is already set by the zoning, as is the density. What we've seen is that once these projects get to final engineering, things are realized that weren't realized at that development plan, and it requires them to come back to the board for any changes to that initial plan, which can be very burdensome and time-consuming on a project. So we're recommending that we would remove that development plan requirement altogether. That's really the only change here.
Sure.
Yep.
Agreed. Laurie says good. Constantine?
Okay.
Commissioner Lockhart?
Go with the recommendation.
All
You guys are
good.
making it easy on us today.
Oh, hold on, you shouldn't have said that.
Boat docks. So currently, boat docks and unenclosed boathouses over 1,000 square feet are required to go to the board for approval. We're recommending these could be approved administratively. However, if staff denies the project, then they could still appeal it to the board for any change in that decision.
Commissioner Lockhart?
Yes, I like this, the concept of staff approving them administratively. I think there are some situations where staff may want to bring something that's an odd animal to the board. Not all lakes are perfectly round and right, and so when you have, if you're going by acreage of the size of the lake, but maybe a portion of it is a smaller portion, and someone wants to put a large area out there, it could look like it works on paper, but in actual application be obtrusive. And so we talked a little bit about the length of the dock versus the actual landing space of the dock, and that there still needs to be some flexibility on the part of staff to be able to punt to us when they deem it appropriate, if it's not a cut and dry situation. And I don't know how to word that, but that was where our conversation was yesterday.
Mr. Constantine?
And the reversal is that there may be some citizens in the district that have a concern about it, and so therefore, could there be a provision in here that the commissioner could ask that it be brought forward?
Okay. Commissioner Delory?
I agree with the size of the lake wouldn't matter. I also agree that the walkway, it is what it is, and then there needs to be some type of formula with that. But I like the fact that either a commissioner or someone can bring it back to us.
I don't mind it being approved.
I'm okay as it's currently written, as long as, and there's several things, and we've already talked about two of them today, staff level, that we have some kind of guardrails to ensure equal treatment under the law, so that what Mrs. Smith receives is the same thing Mrs. Jones will receive 4 years later when they ask for it, and we've changed no criteria. And because what I've observed since I've arrived here is anything that's a staff level, it depends on who the staff person is or who the director happens to be of development services at that time, what the interpretation of what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, which then breeds complaints to our offices going, your staff said I can't do this, but there's 5 of these and this one was approved 2 years ago. I don't know how we end all of that, but I certainly would like this to be a staff level as much as possible. But if we're going to consider one of us bringing it and asking it to come before the commission, then maybe we just need to keep it like it is. Commissioner Hart.
I struggle with the disparate nature of that as well. Somebody's got the wherewithal to say, wait, I want my commissioner to be involved, or somebody doesn't have the wherewithal to say that they don't. So I think we need to figure out what we want to do here. I think the original request in terms of staff saying, I think I need more guidance on this from the commission, that's entirely different from the commissioner wanting to bring it up, or I'm not good with the commissioner bringing it up. We are here to legislate, not to manage. I think it's staff's responsibility to do that if we go down that path. But as the chairman said, if we go down that path, then it needs to be administered equally.
And Mr. Chairman, with that note, because there is some issues right now, I'd keep it as is until we actually define out what those issues all are, so we can have clear, equal rulings across the entire county, depending upon who the staff member is, and we're not there yet.
Chairman,
Yes.
if I may offer
Please.
a potential suggestion.
Throw us a lifeline. We could use all we can get.
So we talked a lot in all the briefings, and I think we came to some agreement that, the issue with this a lot of times is the walkway to the terminal platform, whatever you want to call the end structure, where the slips are, where the boat dock, where the boathouse is. It's really not the walkway that's the issue. It can be a shallow lake. You need far walkway. It's really that platform. So if you established a maximum square footage for that platform in the code, and you said anyone that wants or needs to go above that has to go through a variance procedure, variances can act in different ways. We already have that variance criteria in the code. It's a public hearing. A lot of neighbors come out for those, especially those that are interested neighbors. And it also already has set criteria, which makes the property owner have to show a hardship and why they really need to have this platform at this size based on how big the lake is, what the depth is, what they want to do out there. So that may be an option where it kind of sounds like you're getting what you feel. You're getting a hearing so neighbors can have input. You're having a defined criteria where you can go above this certain square footage, whatever that is, and you get to have that considered by one of your boards.
I like that.
It's fine.
Good.
All set then.
Mr. Glory?
We're good. I'd like to see what those numbers are first.
Oh, of course. Yeah, we will come up with something, not me, but staff will come up with something with their expertise, and it'll be in the draft that comes to you.
Go back and watch the last 10 years of public hearings related to docks. That could be a good start. All right, next.
So this is the last slide that I'll be presenting this morning, which is related to our conventional rezoning criteria. Currently, that criteria is scattered throughout multiple sections in our land development code, so we really just want to rein them in and compile them into one section for clarity for applicants, and that criteria is listed on the screen.
Just do it.
I'm good.
Okay, looks good. All right, and with that, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Gomez. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm back just to discuss a couple more items, and these were just requests that that were brought up for discussion, that we just need a little bit of additional guidance on how we want to move forward with these. So the first one is underground utilities. The request would be to have a requirement for overhead lines to be buried. In the Land Development Code, we would have options of doing it for new subdivisions, for infill developments, or even development frontage improvements. Certainly, new subdivisions would probably be the least significant cost. Some estimates that I've seen are that it costs up to 10 times more to bury these lines than to have them as overhead lines. The pro would be for enhanced storm resilience, and I've seen that between 5 and 14 times more resilient is what you can get when you bury these lines. So those are the considerations that we're requesting to get direction if this is something that you would like for staff to look into further. And there may be even a broader conversation about whether the Land Development Code is the correct place for this, or whether it should be some sort of plan that the county brings back with some sort of strategy from emergency management standpoint. I will point out this would likely fall into that Senate Bill 180, more restrictive. So I just want to make that mention as well.
Commissioner Lockhart, we'll start at your end.
I think this will make affordable housing difficult, for one thing. I also think depending on the type of the storm, buried lines may not be more resilient, especially if it's a water event and we have to wait for water to recede and things to dry out before you can get to where the power is to fix it. So I know buried power lines seem to be the easy button when people, especially when they first move to Florida, and they go, why are all these power lines, above ground? They should be underground. And I don't think it's the panacea, personally. I don't think we need to be taking this bite of this apple at this time.
Mr. Constantine?
I'd love to have underground utilities everywhere. I know that some places, because of the type of soil and water table, it may be difficult. I don't know, right now it's just speculation as to what the additional cost would be or not be. I would love to see that everybody would want to do it, but one of the things I do feel that is important to look at is when an area is devastated by a disaster and the lines are taken down. And I've been in a situation where I did not get power back for 3 or 4 weeks because the power lines fell. And then I watched in those 4 weeks, Florida Power at the time, Duke Energy now, putting power lines back up in the same location with the same sturdiness or lack thereof, and expecting, here we go again, a different outcome of those things. And then I see the Public Service Commission providing additional funds for the improvement and strengthening of the grid and the power utilities to the utility companies. But what they do is they just keep putting up the power lines. The bottom line is that where a place is most vulnerable, I think that's where we should be putting in underground utilities. And that was the whole intent when I first brought this up. That's where I said, I understand sometimes we can't expect every, whether it be affordable housing or the soil or whatever, that we can put underground utilities. But where we know there is a problem, and again, potentially this goes back to 180, but where we know that there is a problem and it will happen again, it just seems ridiculous for us to allow the utilities, who are being paid for improvements, to go ahead and just put power lines back up.
Commissioner Delory?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would not move forward with this because the entry cost that the homeowner would have to pay. And if they're existing homes, there would be the increase on a monthly bill. And there's a difference between transmission and distribution. A lot of times it's the transmission lines, not the distribution lines, and those fall under separate rules or regulations. And so I'd feel more comfortable not moving forward with this.
I'm not interested in moving forward with this for all the things already mentioned. There's pros and cons to underground and overhead, et cetera. I think this is best in the hands of what the power company's recommendations are, where the right-of-ways are at, and what best serves that particular community or development. If there is a way to incentivize going underground, if that's a possibility, I would be interested in that. Outside of that, not interested. Commissioner?
Incentive, yes. Demand, nope.
And to that point then, Mr. Chairman, is there a chance, is there a possibility that we could incentivize this?
I'd have to go back and see what types of, how we could incentivize this. I don't, off the cuff, I don't have that.
I would appreciate it if you
information.
look at that possibility.
Okay.
All right, before we move on to the next slide, it's 12:16. Does anybody?
I'm almost done.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Proceed.
All right, this is really the last substantive request here for feedback is residential lighting. We've had many circumstances recently, actually, where we've received complaints of people, light creeping over into property lines, people pointing floodlights at their neighbors. So the question is, do we want to look at regulating this? And really, there's 3 different levels. It's actually limiting it at the property line to 0.5-foot candles, which is what our commercial requirement is now. So it would match that in our land development code, or simply prohibiting floodlights or requiring cutoff fixture lights. I will point out this would become a code enforcement endeavor. So, that is one thing that we would have to keep in mind as we move forward with this. And I know there's been also some questions about whether we should look at adopting like dark sky requirements in general for our subdivision. So I just wanted to put that out there, receive some feedback on that.
We'll start with Commissioner Delory and go left.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this would be very difficult to enforce and would put undue burdens on our existing staff. And at this time, I don't see a need to move forward with it. And it's on a case-by-case basis, and we should address it as such.
Mr. Constantine?
I don't know if others have received complaints, but I have in my district about the floodlights and other things. I think we should be looking at examples of success. I mentioned to Mr. Gomez that Groveland has instituted something within their neighborhoods that has been successful. In fact, received one of the awards with the Regional Planning Council. And their dark skies, dark light, whatever you want to call it. And I think we should at least look at those and see if there's applications that can be put into effect in Seminole County, especially in the neighborhoods. And so I'll just leave it at that.
Commissioner Lockhart?
So I was the person with the floodlight who didn't realize that it had fallen over and was now dipping not so much into my trees, but into Anita's bedroom window. And instead of Anita just picking up the phone and calling me and saying, hey, do you know your floodlight's shining in my bedroom window, she told all the neighbors about it. And one of the neighbors was gracious enough to call me one day and say, hey, your floodlight's shining in Anita's window. And I said, well, why didn't Anita just call me? And she said, well, because, we just talked about it. And I said, well, maybe that's where we need to start. Maybe when someone's floodlight is shining in your window, you just call your neighbor and you say, hey, could you pivot that 20 degrees? And then it's fixed, and there's no code enforcement and there's no requirement, and we just treat one another well as neighbors. That was my first thought. My second thought was people do need floodlighting for safety in certain areas, and I would not want to start dorking around with that personally. So this to me, I'm happy to look at something that might be working somewhere else, but this kind of goes against where I'm at personally.
Commissioner Hurd.
I don't want to dork around with it either, but I will say, I think it's worthy of investigation as long as we're minimally restrictive and it's enforceable. I do think there are neighbors that are willing to cooperate. There are neighbors that, had they called you, you might have been a jerk about it. And quality of life for all neighbors is our responsibility, including the safety of the ones that want to put the lights up, because even in the more rural areas, if I didn't have floodlights outside of the house, I couldn't go outside because of the bears. Like, we couldn't walk out the front door without knowing that he's sitting on my front porch. And so, worthy of an investigation, but I don't want to create a whole, I'm going to stick with the theme, dorky mess here that we can't enforce.
I also don't think this needs to be that difficult. I am a fan of dark skies, lighting. However, I will tell you, as an individual involved in a property dispute and lawsuit with a neighbor, when my late wife was training the horses and dealing with the horses at 10, 11 o'clock at night with floodlights on, that particular neighbor found the inability to either have curtains or shades to be able to close. It was illuminating 5.5 acres that way, apparently directly into where they were sleeping in their bed. So I've got mixed emotions. I don't have a problem looking at something, but I don't want to get over restrictive, maybe an exemption for ag uses and so forth, because there are a lot of people in my district that do equestrian training, and sometimes they're going till midnight. By the time they're mucking the stalls and getting things all back together to start the next day. And for the most cases, we don't have a lot of complaints from those users anyway, but happy to look at reasonable considerations. I think that's what we're all saying, I believe. If you want to bring something to us that's reasonable based on concerns, complaints, recommendations, others using. Fair enough?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that direction. All right, just general updates, definitions, then we're going to update some additional general updates that I'm not going to bore you with because they're really just procedural. And then just the next steps, we're really going to start drafting that code based on the feedback that we've had from these work sessions. There's some things that we've discussed today that I think we're going to kind of put to the side as for further study, and then others that we want to move this forward to get this adopted within our time schedule. So that's it.
Anything else for staff before we're, okay, seeing none. Was there anybody here from the public that wanted to speak on this work session for any reason?
No, sir.
Seeing none, we will be in recess until 1:30.